Good evening and welcome to the Jinn&Tonic show on this Friday, the 16th of November. We have a special show this evening with the Apostate Prophet, who will be joining us as a guest around 8:30, so in about half an hour's time. In the meantime, as always, a welcome to my co-host, Stop Spamming. Good evening, sir.
Hi guys, good evening.
Good evening if you're watching us. We'll start off as usual with a few crazy comments. If you're a Muslim, or in fact if you are somebody who wants to join the show, let me know. We will have the Apostate Prophet on for as long as we can once he joins us at 8:30, and then after that, if there's interest, we'll continue with the show. But certainly I want to give the Apostate Prophet as much time as possible, so I won't be bringing on too many people while we have that discussion. But after that, we will certainly open it up. So let me know if you want to join us a little bit after that, and we can discuss anything that he's spoken about or anything else. But we will give him plenty of time on the show. So with that said, Stops, do you want to mention, I think before we do the comments, or we can do the comments first, I don't mind, and then maybe go into, the point that you were talking about as we wait for the Apostate Prophet to join us.
One thing I want to do, and that is, instead of just going for the hadith of the day or hadith of the week, I'd like to start off the Jinn&Tonic show with a goodie of the week. Just to tell people, we're not only looking at the negatives, we're also looking at the positives. We're also not shy to point out if there is anything positive. So I'm going to have a hadith at the end of the show, absolutely. But I would like to start off with a goodie of the week, which was also Abu Huraira, who said, I heard the Prophet say, the fitra, and this is the fitra, is not fitna, fitra, okay, is not only what we know it to be, and this is the built-in belief, is 5 things, according to Muhammad, that is. The 5 things. Number 1, circumcision. Number 2, shaving the pubic hair. Number 3, trimming the mustache. Number 4, cutting the nails. And 5, plucking the armpit hairs. They didn't have shavers in those days. And this is according to Sahih Bukhari 5891 and Sahih Muslim 527. So this is I think this is quite nice, quite good. If this helps people groom themselves and keep more clean and hygienic, great. Circumcision, we know today, is nonsense. It does not serve anything. There are still people who are looking for reasons to do this. They think the ritual is something good, to cut a man's penis and to cut a woman's labia or whatever kind of female genital mutilation you're performing. Shaving the pubes, trimming the mustache, cutting the nails, plucking the armpit hairs, no problem with this. There you go.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's just sort of basic hygiene, isn't it? Presumably, obviously people weren't necessarily, or maybe some people were doing it and others weren't or whatever, but now it became, something that was commanded or suggested. Does that come across as a suggestion or a commandment for all followers? Stops?
No, I heard the Prophet say the fitra. In other words, this is something that is built in and that you should be doing. Because you need to remember, there's a lot of claims around hygiene and washing and things like that. We need to understand that the wudu, which is also washing of different body parts, is nothing but a ritual. It has nothing to do, initially, it had nothing to do with hygiene. It's a religious ritual which can be performed with sand or anything. It's just, you're supposed to make the moves. And this has been transformed into something more substantial, where you clean yourself. Also a very positive thing, but additionally not actually intended as such. So I think this goodie of the week, I think, is much better, that the fitra consists of personal hygiene. The circumcision, okay, I'll leave behind, because I don't subscribe to any kind of mutilation of the human body. So I don't agree with circumcision. But the rest of the stuff, great.
Cool. Okay, excellent. Let's do a few comments, and then we'll talk about something else that you wanted to bring up. And then AP, the Apostate Prophet for short, AP is just chatting to me on Twitter there. He will be joining us about half an hour from now, give or take.
Great.
So let me bring this up. Since you know him longer than I do, you can...
Well, I appreciate him for different reasons. I appreciate most of all that he's such a calm, collected, very down-to-earth person, and that he talks about things he knows about because he's experienced them. He's been there, he's done it, he's informed himself, he's educated himself, so he knows what he's talking about, and it's authentic. He comes across as a very calm, level-headed, authentic person, and I think people appreciate that. I mean, he's got so many subscribers, and I'm a little bit worried on how long before he disappears. But it could be that YouTube is now paying special attention after Masked Arab was so brutally killed off and then resurrected.
Really? Just mention that. Okay. Let's do the comments first. I want to come back to that then. Otherwise, the comments will sit up here. So,
this is something that that happened a while ago. I just happened to find I came across this again because I went and said I just quoted the Quran, because the Quran claims in 13:13 that thunder, not lightning. Okay, thunder. It talks about thunderbolts. Not lightning. Lightning is used somewhere else, but here specifically it's using thunderbolts, are used to kill naughty people. So it says in the Quran 13:13, he sends thunderbolts and strikes herewith whom he wills while they dispute about Allah. And that is a mistake in the Quran. So I said, well, then please discuss. And the guy comes back and says, it specifically says thunderbolt. Well, that's what I said, thunderbolt. And he says there's no mistake, except in your head. Well, no, because you can't kill anybody with a thunderbolt. You need lightning, the electricity part, okay? The noise doesn't really kill people. And to me, it's quite ridiculous, imagining Allah running behind people he doesn't like and then hitting them with noise. For me, this is not correct, okay? This is, in my eyes, very wrong. And then another guy comes and says, no, you're not dealing with children. We are the ones dealing with people copying from idiotic sources. Now, the idiotic source that I'm copying is the Quran. I'm not making anything up. I'm just quoting the Quran, who want to understand something wrong and then ask us to refute their wrong understanding and idiotic arguments. Well, the arguments is in the Quran. He sends thunderbolts and strikes therewith whom he wills. Okay, that is from the Quran. And then he sends thunderbolts. I don't know what is not clear in this.
I suppose my only thing with that stops is that they could say that the translation is wrong. What it means is lightning bolt and not thunderbolt, because thunder and bolt, as you say, doesn't go together. So, and this guy that's responding to you there says he sends thunderbolts and strikes. So what they are seeing, I'm just imagining from their point of view, what they're saying is, hey, no, it's not really thunderbolts, it's lightning bolts. So it's just a mistranslation. What's really meant there, and because it says strikes, thunderbolts, thunder doesn't strike, only lightning does. So it's really, I think it's just, they would probably just say, hey, it's a misunderstanding, it's supposed to be lightning bolts. I'm not sure the weight of this, but maybe you can share why you think it's strong.
It's very wrong, because there are other places in the Quran where it says lightning. So the word lightning was known to the Arabs at the time. But here they specifically say thunder. So he sends thunder. It's not thunderbolts, okay? It's thunder. He sends thunder and strikes therewith.
Okay, good.
Strike. It's a strike therewith.
Good. So when you said thunderbolts, he actually sends thunder. There's nothing about thunderbolts. It's
just the translation. It's the translation is thunderbolts. It's just thunder. He sends thunder and it doesn't say strikes therewith. It actually says what is the word? And kills, or there's another word, slays therewith whom he wills. This is the funny thing. It's thunder. It's not lightning. And then what they do is the admin turned off commenting. So, they say, well, you're wrong. I'm not going to tell you why you're wrong. This is an atheistic thing not to see the obvious. And now I'm going to shut you up. And that's it. So.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the next one.
This one is brilliant. This was a comment made to you. So you're an atheist, huh? Do you have scientific evidence that God does not exist? I'm sorry, I find this hilarious. And I see this again and again and again. And it doesn't matter whether it's Christians or Muslims. It's a lot of times they come up with this sentence, do you have scientific evidence that God does not exist? Next.
Yeah, well, a couple of things to say on that. I mean, obviously, it's a shifting of the burden of proof, but it depends on the claims that are being made. So if because obviously I need to understand the claims that are being made. Which God are you talking about, and what is your claims about this God? Because if you just said, "Hey, God is the universe," then and you're equating God with the universe, which most theists don't, then obviously I'm not going to challenge that. But if you're claiming that God exists outside the universe and he's done certain things in this universe, then I'm looking for the scientific evidence for that. And the absence of that scientific evidence is strong indication that, in fact, these claims are unlikely to be true. So, but this is an easy shifting of the burden of proof here. They need to demonstrate it rather than the other way. But of course, this is often the case. I deal with this such a lot, so you're right. Let's move on to the next one. There we go. Okay, this is in German, so you'll have to do a translation for us.
Oh, shit. This is in German.
No problem. It's just a translation there.
Oh, goodness. Okay, this is to a video where I can't even remember what Anyway, so you're a dirty son of a bitch, to say it nicely. Why don't you do yourself and the rest of the mankind, your family, the rest of the mankind, a favor and kill yourself?
Okay, yes, a wonderful gentleman that, or I guess it's a gentleman that doesn't want to engage in the argument, but rather, the ad hominems and the emotions kick in. And I think we've talked about this before, haven't we, Stops? It's the fact that we are, quite strongly critiquing their view, and that gets people emotional. And instead of responding with logical or potentially logical arguments, you get this sort of emotional response. Yeah, so there we go. Again, maybe, the response to this sort of thing should be, well, one of the responses could be to refer them back to the Qur'an, because they keep wanting to say that it's peaceful and it's wonderful and so forth. And then, you have this sort of statement. So, is this person following what most Muslims claim the Qur'an says? And I think you gave it to me as well, and I've got some of those links to certain surahs as well.
Use them, yeah.
Yeah. Send them some of these surahs and say, is that what this surah says about how you should behave? So as a Muslim, do you want to reflect? And here's some passages from your book for you to reflect on and see what response you get. All right, moving on. Another one of yours, I think.
Shortcut. Both husband and wife should love Allah and His Prophet more than they love each other. What the hell? Oh, both husband and wife should love Allah and His Prophet more than they love each other. This is a blessed marriage. If they love Muhammad more than they love their spouse, everything's hunky-dory.
Yeah, somebody has some relationship expertise. Obviously, there's a lot of religious people. I would not suggest that is the best methodology for having a, quote, blessed marriage. So, in practical terms, when, your partner should be the most important person in your life. But of course, we have somebody here just making sort of a subjective, unsubstantiated claim. But in some respects, this can lead to, and we do see it, don't we, Stops, some very unpleasant marriages. Because if people take what Allah and the Prophet say literally from the Quran, and that's more important than your love for the other person, then you are going to do certain things that are pretty unpleasant on occasions. And then you're going to claim that it's because you're following, Allah and His Prophet. So
that's why you have a lot of domestic violence.
Correct. Yes, exactly. So, and some of that violence, because that happens, in atheist households and elsewhere. But a number of religious people, and Muslims in particular, will cite the Quran as the reasons for why they're doing this.
As a justification, yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Cool. Let's move on. So this is one from mine. That altercation with Sarah and Hamid is still there. He calls the Prophet Peter, but he gets very emotional if his brother is called a pedophile.
Huh?
So this was obviously the altercation with Sarah and Hamid.
Why would somebody write something like that? I mean, that's really stupid. I mean, that's idiotic. That's asinine. What? I don't get it. If somebody calls my brother a pedophile, then what is the justification for that? If my brother is not a pedophile, because today, if you call my brother a pedophile, he can go to jail if he is found to be a pedophile and following up on his urges. Now, 1,000 years ago, if people were pedophiles, they were not sent to jail. because it was acceptable in society 1,000 years ago. But today we don't do that. So does it make it correct? No, it doesn't. So I don't quite get it. If I call somebody, if the hadiths are taken as gospel truth, because there's like Adnan Rashid says 100% accurate and accepted by everyone, then you need to accept that Aisha was 6, and a guy who is marrying a 6-year-old girl, by definition, is a pedophile, because a pedophile, my definition of a pedophile is somebody who's interested in underage girls or boys. And that's it. So if you marry a girl of 6, what is that? Is that normal behavior? No. Somebody asked today on Facebook, is it okay for a 115-year-old man to marry an 18-year-old? No, it's not okay. He can do it. Maybe it's legal, but I still condemn it. I think it's sick. And this is the same way that I will condemn somebody who marries a 6-year-old. But here, on top of everything else, and the thing is, it's not the age difference so much, okay? From a legal point of view. From a moral point of view, it's different. But from a legal point of view, you can be 100 and marry an 18-year-old, sure. But you cannot marry a 6-year-old. This is the point. She's 6. She is not in any way mature enough to have a husband.
Yeah, indeed. We'll obviously welcome in Thunderous and TJ. And as I say, we'll be having Apostate Prophet in about 15 minutes, give or take.
Hi, guys.
Good evening. Good evening. Yeah, and I think the other thing stops with regards to this is, as you say, by today's definition, Muhammad would be considered a pedophile, but there's no evidence that, and I think if I remember correctly, this was, Sarah got quote unquote emotional because Gary was called a pedophile, and of course, there's no evidence that Gary's done anything like that. So on one hand, you've got somebody who's, most people would acknowledge today does fit that definition, and one person who's been called that with no evidence, and there's serious implications for considering somebody today, a pedophile. So I could see why he would, take issue with something that is, no evidence for and has serious consequences with people making that claim.
Yeah. And let me just give people a pointer. If you want to confuse a Muslim apologist, and this is something I did today, I asked a very, very straight, very easy, very simple, very short question. Would you categorically condemn Muhammad if he married a 6-year-old girl today in the UK? Today, okay? In the UK, today. Would you categorically condemn Muhammad if he married a 6-year-old today in the UK? And lo and behold, you will not get an answer. They will tap dance around it. They will tiptoe. They will run away. They will go around. They will do anything. They will tell you about the weather in Sydney, but they will not tell you whether this is right or wrong.
Yeah, because as we discussed before the show started, there's an implication. If they say that, hey, it's wrong today, then there's an implication that that behavior is not to be followed today. And what most Muslims that I've spoken to anyway say is that Muhammad is an example to follow for all people for all times. And so there you have a contradiction. If you're saying that it's not okay today, then clearly that particular action, among perhaps others as well, is not something that you would follow today, in which case he's not the prophet to follow for all time, for all people, with all of his actions. And so
exactly, yeah.
That's why you probably get this, tap dancing around, because there's a seemingly clear contradiction there.
But I think it's good that we are holding the feet to the fire. And this is exactly the way to do it, I think, in my eyes anyway.
Yeah. Cool. Let's finish these off. There we go. Our good friend Tan, who's no longer, I don't know if he's still in the UK, but has obviously been banned from Speaker's Corner, I believe. At one point he was arrested. I'm not sure if he's out on bail or what the situation is. But anyway, Tan is a Buddhist terrorist. Maybe he's struck terror into the hearts of Muslims with his blunt approach. I think that's about all we can say about him. But that sort of thing lives on. I mean, this video, there was, by the way, for those people who don't know this, I think this was the first ever video of Tan in the park.
That's the one that you did.
Yes, he was a lot more tame then. He sort of started out there, and And if you go and watch this video, and that's the title, "The Muslim Threatens 10 Malaysian Buddhists." And, you know, he's still, you can see the beginnings of, you know, the sort of confrontational side of him. And obviously he just went from there, really. So, but that video still gets comments even to this day. And that was a good while ago, maybe a year ago or something. I don't know. Cool. That whitey ignorant, ignorant,
arrogant.
Sorry, thank you. I was tongue-tied there. Ignorant, arrogant atheist. Stop arguing with him. Just a waste of time. Don't even know the difference between quantum and relativity theory.
Quantum.
Yeah, quantum and relativity theory.
Oh, people are so cute.
Yes, it's that's why, you know, some of it is just hilarious. Some is educational, some is just entertaining. You know, you just got to laugh a little bit at some of these things. I think that's the last one. Yep, there we go. So that's the last one. Cool. So TJ and Thunderous, while we wait for the Apostate Prophet. Stops, did you want to say something else?
This whole thing with the circumcision got me going. And then there was an article by Clarion, and not only Clarion, there's multiple. I mean, this has been corroborated by several news outlets, okay? Because the funny thing is that all of a sudden there are lawyers in the US defending FGM, female genital mutilation. This is being defended in the US by lawyers there. And I would like your opinion on this. But just to give you some background, FGM includes all sorts of procedures involving partial or complete removal of external female genitalia, okay? So it's any kind of injury to female genital organs for non-medical reasons, okay? That's FGM. Now, you also have the male corresponding thing, which is circumcision. Now, you very rarely get more than that. You don't get removal of, I don't know, one ball or whatever. Normally, it's just the foreskin that gets removed, which I think is criminal. But this doesn't have the long-lasting consequences as it does for girls. Now, in America, you have a Nagavala, a Muslim sect from India that has a small community in the Detroit area. And this sect believes that FGM is a religious obligation. Note, not cultural, religious. They are doing it for their God. Now, there are various reasons for this, which we can go into. One of the 9 girls cut in the Michigan clinic, at least 2 had their clitorises completely removed, according to prosecutors. Now, to completely remove this, I don't know what you know about anatomy, but the clitoris goes on both sides. It looks a little bit like the funny bone of a chicken. It goes on both sides of the labia, and then it comes up on the top, and then you get the prepuce. Anyway, all this part was completely cut away. Now,
can we pause as well and say, Stops, as far as we know, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, this is all done without anesthesia?
Well, this we don't know, because this is done in a clinic. So it could be that this was done with local anesthetic.
Right.
In let's call it in real life, in other countries, it is done without. And it's on different ages. Here, these girls were 9, some girls were 7. So normally it's done a lot earlier than that. Because here the girls were cut at the so-called Livonia clinic of a Dr. Atta, who's also charged in the case, along with his wife, Farida Atta. Now, this is the twist here. The man is the treasurer of the mosque, and it's alleged that the mosque paid for the cutting of the girls. And the woman who was performing this, also a doctor, was arrested boarding a flight to Kenya. So she was trying to run when she heard about this. Now, the lawyers say the procedure performed on the girls, and 4 are from Michigan, 2 from Minnesota, and 3 from Illinois, and this is important, was benign. So the procedure was benign and does not qualify as FGM. They accuse the government of overreach, demanding freedom of religion. Now, the freedom of religion is one thing, because the overreach of the government is due to the fact that the law was passed on the transportation of people across borders to perform this. And therefore they are saying, well, here the girls were from Michigan, and therefore they never crossed any kind of border, so this law cannot be applied anyway. So there's a whole lot of controversy here, because they have a law which says whoever knowingly circumcises, excises, or infibulates the whole or any part of the labia majora, sorry, this is Latin, or labia minora, or clitoris of another person under the age of 18 shall be fined or imprisoned for up to 5 years of birth. And this was passed by a government institution in the context of moving people. And now they're using this to say, well, they were not allowed to have this law in the first place. And prosecutors argue that Nagwala did this, okay, with the help of the Attas, when they cut the genitals of the 2 7-year-old Minnesota girls who were tricked into the procedure, and this is in 2017, by their mother, and they were crying and they were bleeding like crazy. Now, prosecutors have 6 victims in the indictment, including 4 Michigan girls, and they allege that these doctors may have subjected up to 100 girls in the procedure over a 12-year period. Now, the doctors maintain that they committed no crime, that they engaged in a religious ritual that involved only a shaving or the nick of the genitals. I mean, they have evidence, okay, that the clitoris was removed physically, and they call this shaving. And this doctor now claims that she's been prosecuted under the law, and this is the point, that Congress lacked authority to enact. Thus, the female genital mutilation charges must be dismissed. And defense lawyers have argued that the law banning female genital mutilation is unconstitutional. And this is the crazy thing that you have in the States at the moment. And this is the background is a little bit. I've looked this up to keep it very basic. You can go very deep into this, but I don't want to do this here now. In Wikipedia, they have a very, very nice summary, and is not required by most forms of Islam. Indeed, many Muslim scholars have declared it un-Islamic, but it is viewed as obligatory by the Shafi and Hanbali and some Malikis. But yet, a few paragraphs later, it says it is forbidden in Islam. Yet several Muslim leaders have called for an end to the practice. I don't know how you can have it forbidden and Muslim leaders have called for an end to the practice. If it is, I don't know, the Muslim Brotherhood is working on decriminalizing FGM. So there's a whole lot of I don't know, conflicting information here on this whole topic. Now, the whole thing is based on a weak hadith where the Prophet says, do not cut severely, as that is better for a woman and more desirable for a husband. And on the other hand, he says, the circumcised parts touch each other, the bath becomes obligatory. And this is in Sahih Muslim. And then you have Abu Mali, circumcision is a law for men and a preservation of honor for women. And this is in Hanbal and Abu Dawud.
Somebody in the chat is saying that this is a Shia group. I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with the specifics there.
There are different groups who have different statements on this. This is exactly what I'm trying to get to, because now it says circumcision of the female is by cutting out the clitoris. This is called hufad, and this is in Reliance of Traveler, the classic manual of Islamic law by Al-Misri. So, but the funny thing is, does any single Islamic scholar condemn male or female genital mutilation? No. And this is the point that I'm getting to. There is so much confusion around this. There are so many very, very different things being said about female genital mutilation. Some say it's not necessary. Some say it's an honor. Some say, yes, it's absolutely necessary. It all comes down to this old thing that you're not allowed to have pleasure from sex. You need to be, devout, and you need to only pray, and you shouldn't be enjoying sex, and you should have as many children as possible, but don't enjoy sex. It's the same in the Christian church. It's been in other places as well. So this is sick. In my eyes, this is sick, and this is why I wanted to come from the fitra, which consists of 5 parts, one of them being the circumcision of men, but it also goes into FGM, female genital mutilation, cutting out of, and sometimes labia are cut, sometimes whatever, for non-medical reasons. Now, if you get circumcised for medical reasons, that's different. Sometimes it is necessary, the same with the female. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking only for religious, ritualistic reasons. And that is that I'm going to ask here now for everybody to give me their comments or feelings or whatever. What do you think about specifically female genital mutilation? Should it be allowed? To what extent should it be allowed? Why is it that in the States we suddenly have this discussion and we do not have a clear condemnation of this?
Right, well, let's have Thunderous and TJ share their views, guys. When Apostate Prophet, who's going to join in less than 5 minutes, joins, I might just cut you short, so just be aware of that. So go ahead, Thunderous, and then TJ, your thoughts on what Stops has been saying.
My opinion is disgraceful, absolutely disgraceful. To be honest with you, it goes beyond me having an opinion that we're having the discussion in the first place, that anybody could raise that female genital mutilation is an option. It's not. It's one of those things. I now think that the fact that the discussion is being had, I'm now beginning to think, well, where do we draw the line on this now? Where does it end? If this is the discussion, if this is the state that we've got to, that we're actually talking about female genital mutilation, this has become a public discussion now. I'm speechless, and I'm sorry on this one. I can't go beyond anything than what I've just said. The mind boggles.
Yeah. TJ, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that from what I've read, the least I can say is that it's recommended, and obviously on the opposite extreme, it's obligatory. So I don't think any scholar can condemn it outright and say it's haram. Secondly, those two, it was actually two doctors. It was one female and one male, I believe, that were caught with this, and they're a Shia group from India, actually. And it's a small minority sect, but regardless, this is going to be, this whole case is going to set a precedent, because this is going to dictate how future cases are going to be judged. Much similar, I would say, but not the same, but similar to the Count Dankula case. I think that it's going to set a precedent, and wherever the verdict is, it's going to be applied for future cases. So. But it's kind of funny how, the female doctor cited that, to charge her with anything was, unconstitutional, which I just thought was very, 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 very laughable that she's citing the First Amendment on that point. It's just boggles my mind. But, this case is going to decide a lot. So, and I hope we get a verdict soon, because the longer this drags out, the more, I think the worse it's going to be. So.
Yeah, and I think we echo everything that both you and Thunderous says, and I think I'm certainly with Thunderous that we should be discussing this as if there is any moral point that can be made on the side of FGM apart from what's already been said. But we have the Apostate Prophet who's joined us. Good evening, sir. Let me just make sure we can hear you.
Is everything fine? Voice? Okay.
Yes, there we go. Good evening. I'm going to let my co-host introduce you, because he knows you even better than I do. So I'm going to pass over to my co-host, and then we'll pass over to yourself. Stops, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like I know you, like good old buddies. No, I just want to say welcome to the Jinn&Tonic show. I want to congratulate you. You are a person who has come on the scene with a splash, because you talk about things that you say things that you have experienced, you look into the background, you then go and investigate what this is, and you bring both things to the table. The authenticity of somebody who knows what he's talking about in a very calm and very relaxed way. You don't threaten, you don't scream, you don't insult, you don't do any of these things. And this is why I think you have become very popular. And this is why I'm surprised you still have a channel, because you are making a hell of an impact on the scene with the way that you are treating Islam. and I want to congratulate you and say thank you for being here. Welcome to the Gin and Tonic show, and it's just wonderful to have you here and to hear your opinion on some of the things that we're going to raise on the topic of Islam.
Well, thank you so much. Wonderful, wonderful. I don't deserve all of that, but
okay, I'll take everything back. You're an idiot.
Well, thank you so much. It's nice being here with you guys. I've heard of you long ago, actually, for a long time now. I think we talked a lot about coming here on this channel. Well, finally we made it. I'm a bit bad with arranging things, but today I'm glad we made it. So
again, thank you so much. My name's Rob. That's obviously Stop Spamming. Maybe we can start, AP, if I can use that for short. Just a little bit about yourself. You know, obviously, for people who don't know you, presumably you're a Muslim and you've become an ex-Muslim. Can you share your journey to whatever extent you feel free, just so that we can introduce it to the audience that might not know you that well?
Sure. I just made a Why I Left Islam video only recently, but let me just make it very quick. I was born in Germany into a Turkish Muslim family. I grew up as a Muslim, not as a very great one in the beginnings, but especially later when my parents wanted to move to Turkey from Germany, and I had to move with them. During that time in Turkey, I was in sort of an identity crisis, and then I became extremely religious. I became extremely absolutist Islamic, and started also spreading my own belief, my own interpretation, my own perception of Islam to other people that I knew. But after years of studying, of practicing, of really hardcore practicing, and depriving myself of so many liberties that I had before, I came to the conclusion, after especially reading the Qur'an 3 times and reading the Hadith and so many other things, I came to the conclusion that it's all nonsense. Which is not a great realization. I mean, it makes you feel extremely depressed if you base your life on the thought that you live your life for this one and almighty Allah, and then suddenly it's not there anymore, and then your whole life makes no sense anymore. So, yeah, I went through that, and first I just stopped practicing Sufism. I was part of Sufism, which is kind of a movement, a mystic movement within Islam. Mine was within Sunni Islam. And only not even a year later, I also stopped believing in Islam. And afterwards, it took me a while to come to the conclusion that the whole belief in God and stuff like that is probably just nothing for me. And yeah, after a while, I started doing online stuff, and now I'm here.
What kind of a flavor Muslim were you?
Well, I was a Sufi. So I don't know if you are familiar with Sufis, if viewers are familiar with Sufis. Sufis are not like fundamentalist Muslims. They are much different. They can be pretty extremist. Most of them are usually far more religious than the average Muslim population. And so was I. I looked very critical at other Muslims because I saw that most Muslims that I saw around me were just not doing enough. And yeah, I was in that. The main emphasis, I would say, in my life was not to kill people and to condemn people and this and that. The main focus was actually to be in love with Allah, to just be in love with Allah, to be in love with the Prophet Muhammad and this and that, to make weird chantings and gatherings and stuff like that. Be more on the love and spiritual side, but I was also filled with all the regular Islamist narratives of the non-believer, of the heretics and the hypocrites and this and that. Yeah.
I've always wondered about, what is your opinion? Why would other Muslims call Sufis non-Muslims?
Well, I wouldn't say that Muslims do that. I would say most Muslims consider Sufis Muslims, but I would say fundamentalist Muslims, especially the Salafi, the Wahhabi, they consider Sufis non-Muslims for specific reasons, because I have to give them a point here, which is that Sufis practice a lot of things that would be considered innovations within Islam, which is actually fundamentalistically seen unacceptable within Islam, such as the revering of saints in Islam. people who died 500, 600 years ago, 1,000 years ago, and going to them and telling them about, and asking them for help in front of Allah and stuff like that, and making large tombs and taking unauthenticated, weak narrations about the Prophet Muhammad and stuff like that. I mean, because of these reasons, they consider Sufi Muslims not real Muslims, and Sufis also have a problem with fundamentalists like Salafis and Wahhabis. But other than that, most Muslims are actually totally fine with Sufis, and have actually a lot of respect for Sufis, because Sufis seem more down to earth and more on the spiritual side of things, rather than forcing everyone to do the right thing.
Okay. By the way, do you see the chat when messages pop up? Because
Yes.
Rob just asked a question. Could you tell the atheists who made you question your faith?
Yeah, so there's a question there from somebody who's asking, tell about the atheist who made you question your faith.
I don't know, is it referring to something that I told during my Why I Left Islam video or something?
Possibly, I'm not familiar. So at some point or maybe you can describe then, if you like, your sort of deconversion. Was it like speaking to one person? Was it a gradual thing? How did that whole thing come about?
Well, my conclusion to leave Islam, to stop believing in Islam, was more my conclusion, was more a result of my studies and my thinking. But I mentioned before in my testimony and also otherwise that there was that there were actually two atheists when I was still a Muslim, but one of them had a very great impact on me, which was it was still school times. I was still in I don't know. It was around that time, whatever. And that person, when I was trying to tell him more about Islam, about how beautiful and how great and how true Islam is, he said something like, "So you want to convince me to believe in Islam? I'm going to tell you something now." And then he cited this Qur'an verse, which is chapter 33, verse 53, where Muhammad, where in the Quran, Allah tells the Muslims not to sit too long in Muhammad's house, not to disturb him too long after they have finished eating or whatever they're doing, and not to marry Muhammad's wives after he died, because that would upset Muhammad and would anger Allah really, really badly. And he told me about that, and that Muhammad was shy and Allah had to step in for him to tell the Muslims how to behave in Muhammad's house. And when he told me that actually shook me a bit. And when I went home, I looked it up immediately, started reading the Quran again, and thought, that's totally weird. Why would the Almighty Allah, who created everything, care about such a detail to tell Muhammad's guest not to sit too long in Muhammad's house and not to marry his wives when he dies? Yeah, that had a great impact on me. That made me even sit down again and read the Quran for a second time and study it even more, even closer, and helped me come to the conclusion that the religion is a lot of nonsense. Yeah.
Okay. If you are being accused of being an Islamophobe, what is this word? What does that word do to you? What do you think of this word?
I just laugh about it.
Okay.
I just laugh. I can't even have sympathy. I can't even have a thing for that. I can't even empathetically go into that person's perspective and think, okay, that makes sense. I try to be often very, very empathetic when someone tells me something even critical. But Islamophobe, seriously, are you kidding me? That's something you would say to someone who, not even in that case, but you would say that to someone who lives in some weird, who lives in some corner of a Western country, of a non-Muslim country, and just hears about Islam and Muslims from his little neighbors who just know as little as he does, and then thinks all Muslims are terrorists and this and that. I mean, I guess that's the definition of an Islamophobe. But if you come and tell an ex-Muslim, a former Muslim who practiced the religion, who learned about it, who studied it, that he's an Islamophobe, then you're a joke, and I can't possibly even try explaining anything to you.
Okay. Exactly.
Yeah, so I
This
agree
is
with
the,
you
this
as
is the
well.
point. This is just to close the discussion and to just end it and just to shut you up. That's all it is.
Yeah, exactly. I have nothing to say about your points. That's why I'll just call you an Islamophobe and walk away. That's what happens.
Yes, exactly. I think as soon as somebody does that, I certainly lose respect as well as what you're saying. If that's because it's almost like an emotional response, and it's, as people saying in the chat here, that's a tactic to deter criticism. You know, if they've got good reasons that they think that they can respond with, then they'll do that. The moment the word Islamophobe comes in, it means potentially that you've been too harsh a critic, too blunt of a critic, or some other thing that's made them uncomfortable, and then this word comes out as a response.
Well, one thing that I saw in about feedbacks and comments about me and my channel was that some people compared me to some other former Muslims who make a rather soft approach with Islam when they criticize Islam. But I'm just not like that. I want to be honest. I want to say exactly what I think. And if people think, when I say, for example, that I'm not against regular immigration, but I'm against the idea of running mass immigration from Islamic countries, I am against that, and I'm still against that. I don't care what anyone says, and I have good reason to be against that. And because of points of that, some people might have said that I am too extreme and might have called me an Islamophobe without even listening to my reaning, without even listening to what I
This is
say.
the worst. Yes, exactly.
But I'm honest. I'm sorry.
Can we? Do you mind if we pick your brain like this?
Sure.
So you okay? Because there's a lot of interest from people who are watching, and one of them. Okay, people are interested in Turkey in general. We'll go to that, but before we do that, Khashoggi, have you been following this? Have you got an opinion on what actually happened there? Because I don't know, this was a question from somebody who's interested how you see Khashoggi and the impact now Turkey has on Saudi.
Well, it's Turkey is very lucky in that case. I mean, I haven't actually been following it that closely from the beginning, but especially at some point when it started getting interesting, it felt like a movie to me, and then I started following it. And yeah, especially when it came out, when Turkish officials came out and said, we have recordings of this, we have everything documented, we have evidence for that, and we can come out with this and show this to everyone. Then I thought, oh, wait. And I wouldn't praise Turkey. Turkey's government currently is a disgusting government. And although I'm a Turkish citizen still, I will still say that I don't care. They do disgusting things. They lock up so many journalists and this and that. But now at this point, since Turkey had some disagreements with Saudi Arabia before, especially in the case of Qatar, when Saudi Arabia turned against Qatar and Turkey suddenly took Qatar's side, Turkey found the perfect chance now to put Saudi Arabia in this corner and to really have some authority over them. And I think it's great, but to be very honest with you, I just think it's great when they fight each other. I don't even care who's
Okay, because I think it's a very interesting, political role that Turkey is playing at the moment in the Middle East, where it's getting involved in all sorts of things.
Absolutely. Well, what I find more disturbing about this is, and I think it's also good that of course it's not good that it's happened, don't misunderstand me, but it's good that this came to light and the whole world has seen this, because it should strengthen the idea among people that that Western nations, strong Western governments and unions should just stop working with the Saudi Arabian regime. I mean, we have to stop that. I mean, of course, America is a great power. Saudi Arabia is a great power in the Middle East, and that's why the Western powers are in some way connected to Saudi Arabia and want to keep that up in order to have control in the Middle East and to have some have some order in the Middle East. But I have always been against that, and people should see that too, that Saudi Arabia is actually in practice not too different from ISIS. And Western governments should stop, Western people should stop approving of this dirty relationship between Western governments and Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Having this. And the thing is, I'm not only saying this because Saudi Arabia is a dirty state. I wouldn't even care maybe. But our relations with Saudi Arabia also cause many other things, many other consequences, like Saudi Arabia establishing their organizations in the West, spreading Salafism in England, in America, in Germany, and so on. You know, they can do that and not fear any repercussions because they have these nice relations with the West, and we should come to an end to this. And the Khashoggi case is actually a good opportunity to point that out and to go in that direction.
Yeah. Okay, talking about that, Turkey today, Turks in German society, your parents going to Germany, where today this is not so popular anymore. There's some interest in that, and I'm personally interested in it as well, because I mean, you know that I have a German channel. I saw that you have now arrived on the German scene as well, where you're doing some active stuff there. So this is quite interesting.
What do you want me to say?
Okay, Turkey today as a counterpart to Europe, because it's trying to get into the European Union, and it would be a huge it is today a Muslim state. It used to be Christian, it is now Muslim. How do you see Turkey as a role, as a counterpart in Europe? How do you see you as part of the German society? How do you see Turkish people in the German society today, when they were asked, they were begged in the 60s to come over and help build cars, for example, and now all of a sudden they're not so welcome anymore? How do you see that situation?
Okay, well, yeah, let me start from the beginning. It was called Gastarbeiter in German, which is guest workers. It was around that time in the 60s and 70s, especially, where Germany thought we have to build the economy, we have to stabilize everything, and they thought inviting mostly Italian workers and Turkish workers would be a good idea to Germany to let them work for Germany, because, you know, the thing is, back then, German society, even German governments, didn't have very much of an idea about how the Turkish society really was, and what the Turkish people really believed in, what the common opinions on culture, on women, and this and that in Turkey were. So they made this decision to invite those people from Turkey to Germany. But the thing is, the main idea back then was, as the name says, guest workers. You know, the main idea everywhere was that Turks come into Germany, into Europe, stay there, work there, earn enough money, earn enough of a living, so that they can create a better living back home in their own country, in Turkey, because Turkey was a disgusting country at that time. It was totally backward. It wasn't booming at all. It was probably culturally very much different from the rest of the Islamic world. It was quite advanced in that regard, but it wasn't economically very promising. So Germany did that, but the thing is, Germany couldn't control the situation, so that the Turks suddenly have become permanent residents in Germany with time, because most of them have seen how great life in Germany is compared to Turkey, and of course they didn't want to go back there. They didn't want to go back to Turkey. The thing is, now Turkey has risen with taking more control, more influence on the rest of the Islamic world, especially on imminent neighbors, on Syria and other countries. Turkey has gained more power, more influence. More Turks have settled in Europe, so that Turkey has become a role player because of immigration in Europe. But the thing is, Turkey became strong, but Turkey also rediscovered its Islamic side. People think nowadays that Turkey has suddenly become Islamic, that Islamic revival has suddenly taken over. That's actually not completely right. The thing is just that Islamic revivalist sentiments, Islamist sentiments, were just suppressed in Turkey. They were always there, but
by Ataturk.
Yeah, by Ataturk and by all his. Okay. By all the prime ministers and presidents afterwards, until Erdogan's party rose to power and started getting rid of all the restrictions one by one. But 20, 30 years ago, it wasn't possible to express Islamist values, Islamist mindset this much in public. Now it has become possible, but again, it's not a revival. It's just that it was suppressed, and now it's not suppressed anymore. Now it's suddenly the government. Back then, it was just the unliked part of the population. But it was inevitable, because you can't suppress such things. Those things have come to light now, and Europe is dealing with it. I think, I don't know where I'm going with this, but but I think
no, this is just your opinion on the situation, the way that it's unfolding at the moment. And this is, a lot of people don't understand this if they are not living in the region, if they're not living in the country, and they don't know these things, because it's very important information that the whole thing with the Turks coming to Germany was intended to be temporary, and it suddenly, it just took over. It developed a life on its own, and suddenly you had a different culture, a different society within society, which is still being propagated today, where you still have some Turkish areas, you have Turkish shops, Turkish everything, in not only in Berlin, but in Cologne and in lots of other big cities in Germany, where you have this. So it is a factor that you need to somehow come to terms with. You need to acknowledge it. You can't just say it doesn't exist and we'll close our eyes and maybe it'll go away. No, you can't do that. There is such a huge proportion of Turkish people living in Germany at the moment. It's actually quite difficult to keep Turkey out of Europe, because they always want to come in and exert more and more influence. And this is the problem.
Well, the thing is, the last Turkish position is actually that they don't want to join the European Union anymore, and they don't want to be part of Europe anymore. But that always changes now, because Erdogan is such a great leader to his people, is such a weirdo who just stands up and says, "Hey America, hey Europe, you bastard." Now the Turkish population somehow feels a bit more confident. And the thing is, the Turkish population in Turkey and the one in Germany, in Europe, are very much different from each other, actually. If you go into them and if you evaluate both of them individually. But the thing is, Erdogan and his government have created this influence on European Turks, especially on German Turks. Erdogan came so many times to Germany and told them things like, don't assimilate. Assimilation is death. Assimilation is a loss of your identity. And the thing is, Germany, naive people in Germany always thought that that we need integration, and we can make the Turkish population integrate slowly and calmly into this country. But meanwhile, those Turks trust their own country, their own president, their own identity much more, far more than they trust Germans, than they trust Christians, non-Muslims. And while the Germans are so calmly trying to integrate everyone, the Turkish government tells them constantly, stop assimilating, don't assimilate, you can't do that. And that's why in Germany, for example, still the majority of Turkish immigrants votes for Erdogan's party.
Yes,
and that won't change in the near future.
And the effect of Gülen?
Sorry?
The effect of Gülen?
Yeah, well, most of Turks hate Gülen, meanwhile. But
who is Gülen, for those of us who don't know?
Gülen is, yeah.
No, no, you do it.
Well, Gülen is a preacher, a Turkish preacher. He was very popular in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. He became much more popular. He was also a co-mentor, one of the mentors of Erdogan, who is currently the president of Turkey. And he had a very wide influence. He had a movement called the Nur movement, the Light movement. He was kind of a more moderate Muslim preacher type who also wanted to kind of build bridges with non-Muslims, especially with Western Christians and Jews, yes. but still maintain the mindset that Islam is the most beautiful, the most superior, the greatest thing. And he was very involved in politics. He also wanted two parties before. one before and one now, which is Erdogan's party. He wanted both of them to get into the Turkish government, to become the Turkish government, to take control and to get rid of suppressions on Islam. So he wanted to create more and more a safe space in the government for Islamic sentiments. The thing is that at the beginning of this century, a few things came out, like that Gülen said to his people in secret that they should infiltrate the government and infiltrate the army, infiltrate the police, and infiltrate everything you find and everything you can get power on. And Erdogan was part of that until only half a decade ago. But over some weird economic things, they started fighting. Erdogan's party and Gülen started fighting, and then Erdogan started blaming everything on Gülen and his movement. Said we have been deceived. He deceived us for decades. And then they started this war on each other, this cold war on each other. And in 2017, this, wait, that was, 2016, right? Was it 2016? Anyway, this attempted military coup happened in Turkey. And the Turkish government immediately said that it was the Gülen movement that staged this coup. And Gülen was meanwhile in America because he had to flee from legal consequences that he could have gotten in Turkey much earlier, like in the beginning of the 2000s, I believe. And yeah, in the Turkish religious community, this has kind of become a thing now, a beef now, a cold war. The Gülen movement in America and the Erdogan followers in Turkey.
But this is now political. It's no longer religious.
Yeah, it is political. It has become very much political. But the thing is,
this is the most important thing I think to point out, that actually that Gülen became more and more political, and that he was the mentor of the guy who now hates him and who's now trying to get him killed. This is the funny thing.
Yeah, the thing is, in Turkey, all religious movements become political. Turkey is such a thing. I mean, there are so many big religious movements within the country, and all of them try to be somehow involved in politics and pick a side. And some of them picked the side of Gülen, and some of them picked the side of Erdogan. The thing is, now that since the attempted military coup, Erdogan started to crack down on everything that has remotely anything to do with Gülen, which is why no one wants to associate with Gülen anymore, and everyone forcibly sides with Erdogan. He started his own little totalitarian form of, controlling organizations, controlling religious movements and everything. It's actually much more serious than people think. In Turkey, freedom of speech has died. And Turks in Europe still support that. They still support this mindset that Erdogan has set up and wants to spread in Europe as well, which is pretty dangerous. I think the only solution is for Germans and other Europeans to wake the hell up and realize that you can't just change things by saying, oh, these people will just integrate within the next 60 years. You have to do something. You have to require immigration.
And there's a question following on from that. A couple more questions on Turkey, and then we can move on. But another question is, what do you think of the situation between Merkel and Erdogan? More broadly, what kind of tensions still exist in Germany with the Turkish community there? Which I suppose you've sort of covered, haven't you?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. I can't think of anything left to say about that, actually, to be honest.
The other question is, I thought Turkey were very secular politically. How were Islamist movements able to take hold in Turkey without being arrested?
Well, I said earlier, it was suppressed. It wasn't secular. It was just, it was forcibly secular because of Ataturk and people after him. They suppressed Islamic sentiments and upheld secularism. But now, after 70 years, the Islamists have started to take control again and to get rid of the secularist restrictions, and that's why it happened. It's actually not that complicated. It's a consequence of oppressing religious sentiments and making them revive again at some time. That was probably a mistake on the Turkish secularist side.
I don't really want to go into the Turks and the Kurds, because then this is going to take 2 hours to discuss this.
That's like Israel and Palestine.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't want to go there. Let's go back to Islam. Did you study Islam, or are you doing more on Islam now that you have left it?
I wouldn't say I'm doing more. I'm just, I would say, I wouldn't say I'm doing more. I would just say I'm still studying. I'm still studying it intensively. I don't think it has become more now than it was before. The thing is, just my approach has become very different after I left Islam. Before I left Islam, I would sit down, take books from old mysticists and old Islamic scholars, and would sit down in the morning without any sleep, and just read through it and feel so emotionally moved by it, and just accept all the things that were in there, and with minimal skepticism in my head. But now I just do it much differently. Now I sit down if I want to talk about a topic, even if I know about it, I sit down, open all the sources again, compare everything to each other, and come to the best conclusion, and try to stay objective in that, while also, when creating the video, including my stupid remarks, of course, and my opinions.
No, I think that's welcome. It's a lovely mix. I really appreciate it. I love it. And talking of which, what sentence in the Quran would you say is the most idiotic?
The most idiotic? Oh. Well, I would say, I don't know, I haven't thought, I'm not very good with examples, I haven't thought about this very much, but I would say one of the most idiotic things is chapter 9, verse 29. No, chapter 9, verse 30, where Allah, the Almighty Allah, says, the Jews say Ezra is the son of Allah, which no Jew ever said. You know?
There are some Jews which hold him in high esteem, but there isn't.
Yeah, well,
it's not a son of God.
No, Jews might even have said before son of God. But the thing is, son of God in Judaism, in Jewish tradition, doesn't mean son of God. Son of God simply means a very holy person. Like,
exactly.
In a metaphorical way, like God has taken him very close to himself. He favors him. That's what that means. And the Quran, the author of the Quran apparently didn't get that reference properly and thought, oh, they think God has a son.
Well, for me, it's definitely 273, where if you slap a corpse with a piece of steak, you can revive it.
Let's ask you something else. Presumably, okay. AP, you get these questions very, very often, because most often I think you would probably have come across the claim by Muslims against ex-Muslim, which is you can't really have been a proper Muslim, a knowledgeable Muslim, or whatever the case is, to have left. And here's the question directly from the chat, which is, how knowledgeable was this guy, in inverted commas?
Sorry, the sound was just lagging.
Oh, sorry. The question directly from the chat was, how knowledgeable was this guy to leave Islam? In other words, they're trying to test your level of knowledge as to why you left, because you couldn't really have left if you really understood Islam, quote unquote, properly. Right?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, Muslims have this thing, especially online Muslim apologists, especially the fundamentalist ones, always have this idea that you have to go through some official Islamic study to get a degree in Islam, to do this in Islam and that in Islam, and go to all those crazy schools, spend 15 years studying Islam and being recognized and certified by major Islamic scholars and stuff like that, which is just an excuse. They don't demand the same thing when someone converts to Islam to begin with. And Islam is not rocket science. Islam is actually a very easy thing to study. I know some people, especially some reverts, so-called reverts, who have big Discord channels and do big activities here on YouTube and other social media platforms as well, always assert that you have to go through these studies and speak brilliant Arabic and this and that, but that's absolutely not the case. Islam is a very easy thing to study. If it wasn't, the Quran itself wouldn't say literally that it's easy to understand and very clear, and just tell you to use your mind, just to read it, to understand it, to follow the word. It's really not hard to understand. The things you require, the things that are required to really understand Islam and to have an opinion about it, is to read the Quran. I have read it 3 bloody times. I don't want to use the F thing anymore in channels. I have read it 3 times. To read the Hadith in context, You don't even need to read it. You don't even need to read it in the context with the Quran. You can just read through Sahih Bukhari or Sahih Muslim, or you can read the book Kutub al-Sidda, which is the collection of major, important, authentic hadith. You can read through those, and you can just use your own mind, especially if you are an above-average intelligent person. It is really a very simple thing and requires only reading and thinking to really learn Islam. I have always wanted to become I have always wanted to be the best Muslim that I could be, and to know everything about it, to practice it, to argue with other people about it. And within my own Sufi order, I was that guy who sat down with 70, 80-year-old people to discuss things about Islam, to argue with them, to have differences with them, and this and that. So I really meant it, and I really tried very hard to perfectionize myself in Islam. Of course, I can't tell anyone how great and how knowledgeable about Islam I was. That's usually a subjective thing. You can't claim that and prove that you were this knowledgeable or that knowledgeable. But yeah, I was quite knowledgeable, and I prayed really hard for Allah to keep me in this religion, to save me from falling apart and this and that, and it didn't work. And just by using common sense, I came to the conclusion that it's nonsense.
Yes. So what's your view on the scholars? Because when I asked that question, it's in relation to a question that's often asked, and one that's in the chat here, which is, ask him whom did he study, you'll find out how ignorant he is. So speak about the scholars, and then the fact that you've got to study with scholars, otherwise you're ignorant.
The sound is really... Can you other guys hear that too? I think
it's stretched.
There's a stretching in the sound. I couldn't hear the...
Oh, my apologies. Can you hear me now?
It comes and goes.
Yeah, okay. It comes and goes. It's pretty cut.
Right, stop. If you can just read the comment in the chat there from Silent Logic.
Ask whom did he study Islam, and you'll find out how ignorant he is.
Okay. Well,
I don't know if you can hear me. The question is, the implication is you've got to study Islam with certain people, otherwise you're ignorant. Can you speak to that sort of claim that's obviously leveled against you?
Oh, okay, I see. Ask him whom did he study Islam, and you'll find out how ignorant he is. Okay. I guess the question is about the Islamic scholar, or the place that I studied Islam from. Yeah. Well, it was majorly the Turkish Sufi Naqshbandi movement, which is the biggest Turkish Sufi movement, which is the biggest Turkish Sufi branch, I would say. And I was within one of those Sufi orders, which is situated in the western part, the northwest part of Turkey. I wouldn't be able to give you exactly the name of the place I studied Islam, because the thing is, those orders are very small and very small situated. They have very many branches, so I wouldn't be able to say, oh, it was exactly that one, because my family members and other people are also there, and I wouldn't want to ever get that out in public. But yeah, it was a Naqshbandi order in Sufi Islam, and if people are familiar with Sufism and the Naqshbandi side of Sufism, then they would know that that Islamic knowledge and the seriousness of studying Islam is very high in that.
And what is it that kept you there? What was the most fascinating thing for you? Was it something that got you into a positive feeling, or was it more that you were afraid?
No. Well, the thing is, initially I entered this Sufism movement and Islam, the Islamic religiosity, by a tragedy that happened in my life, as it happens very often in people's lives, which is that my aunt died, who was very close to me, and I had a lot of conversations with her about Islam, about valuing Islamic principles and stuff like that. And both my aunt and me were not religious before. I was a communist. And
oh shit! Why did you say that?
I was a communist, and I came to realize very, very much later, after I studied and read through and thought through communism too, that it's nonsense. But what attracted me most about Islam was that when my aunt died, I came to the realization that everything is just temporary, and living by yourself for this world, establishing economic structures and this and that probably makes no sense, because what will happen to us when we die? Where will anything go? Where will everything end? You know, and I don't know, all those thoughts made me think more about Islam, more about praying, and the feeling that you have when you pray to Allah genuinely. And when I tried it for the first time, especially when I attended a Sufi practice, a Sufi ritual for the first time, many people might not have seen this, others might know. Sufi gatherings are mostly things where people sit together, connect to each other, and either chant or like whisper or silently connect to each other and to Allah and the Prophet. And
it's meditation, isn't it?
Yeah, kind of, sort of, yeah, except with chanting. But it felt amazing. I was so amazed, and that was the point where I thought, okay, I'm going to go into this.
Okay.
And I started studying, and it was just beautiful. I just could totally relate to to Muhammad, to connecting to Muhammad, to being a slave to Allah and this and that. I was really in that. You know, when I'm now such a fierce critic of Islam, it's hard to believe, but I was really so involved.
But now, talking about Muhammad, how did you learn about him? What did you read, and what did you learn about the person? And looking back at it now, was it that you were just given the chocolate side and the rest was simply just kept from you?
No, it was actually not. Well, the thing is, if you grow up as a Muslim in a Muslim family, obviously they teach you some things and don't teach you other things about Muhammad. You know, like they teach you how Muhammad was oppressed in Mecca by the Meccan polytheists and had to migrate to Medina and had to fight so hard for the one true message of Allah. And you are so indoctrinated by how that was the absolutely true message that he needed to spread, and he needed to destroy the idols for Allah. And you don't even realize until you think further about that in the age of reason, how that makes no sense at all. When you think further about it later, when you read the Islamic sources, when you read the Hadith especially, you find out a lot of embarrassing things about Islam and Muhammad. For example, that the idea of veiling the women came actually from his companion Omar. That was a Qur'an revelation that came after his friend Omar insisted so many times that Muhammad should order his women to cover up. That's pretty weird for a messenger of Allah, of the Almighty, all-knowing Allah. And you start thinking further about a few things, like Muhammad in Mecca destroyed the idols of the polytheists and reinstated the one true belief in God. That's great if you grow up with the indoctrination that Islam is the one true religion. But if you are a polytheist, or if you are an atheist or whatever, and you look at that, you will see that Muhammad destroyed the Islamic holy places of the polytheists, destroyed all their holy idols, forbid them from entering those holy places, sent them away, killed them, oppressed them, gave them two choices: convert to Islam or die, and said Allah is now the only thing that is accepted here. It suddenly doesn't sound so nice when you start thinking about it from a rather rational point of view, instead of from an indoctrinated point of view. And yeah, so many other things, like that women weren't actually that oppressed in the Islamic in the pre-Islamic Arabia. Like first wife Khadija was actually a pretty damn rich woman, and a very respected one, who even funded Muhammad's campaign all the time and stuff like that. And you see how you see all the things about wife beating, about marrying a 6-year-old child and having sex with her when she's 9, and this and that. It's just, when you start thinking about it without the indoctrination, being a bit more rational, it just all seems so dirty and weird.
But it's surreal, isn't it? What is your sentiment, actually, your opinion? How did Islam actually start?
You mean with Muhammad?
No. Okay, let's start with Muhammad. Have you ever thought about this? Because I went and looked at this and I couldn't find any evidence that he existed. So what is your sentiment on that?
Well, the thing is, there is actually, I know many people say this, many people who are critical of Islam also insist that there is absolutely no evidence on the existence of Muhammad, but there is actually some evidence to the existence of Muhammad, which is one of those is, for
Jacobi
example,
doctrine.
no, well, I would say what is well, one artifact that was sent to the Ethiopians, I believe. I know there are two artifacts, especially that can be traced back to evidence that Muhammad has probably existed, or someone really tried very hard to make something up, and other reports from non-Muslims who either became Muslims later or who left Islam later did also exist, pointing at the existence of Muhammad. I would say, being very objective, I would say there is evidence to the existence of a guy called Jesus, although many atheists think that's not true. And there is even more evidence to the existence of a guy called Muhammad. The thing is, it's just very dubious how his life actually was, all the things that he actually said or didn't say, and stuff like that. So there are so many details that we don't know, but I believe that his existence was most likely true.
Okay. All right. If we take
that most historians agree that he has existed.
Okay. If we take that as a basis, how did it get into Islam, the Quran, the Hadiths, and all this? How did this develop?
You mean
why?
Well, the thing is, if you look at the Quran and if you look at the narrations on how the Quran came into existence, the thing is, one hadith explicitly says, even multiple hadith, identical or similar hadith, explicitly say that Muhammad never had the idea to create this book called the Quran. A book, in the sense, the word used for book didn't mean that you have this hard thing with papers inside, and you can and you have copies of that and read that and this and that. You know, that wasn't the meaning of a book in Arabia in that time. The meaning of a book was just a collection of different writings that you can put together that serve as something that you can read within context. And in the Quran refers to itself as a book too. But Muhammad evidently, as said in the hadith, in the narrations, never had the idea to collect all the Quran verses and to put all of that into a well-organized book with different numbers and different with this different structure. That came long after Muhammad died. So what I see in the beginnings of Muhammad and Islam is that Muhammad just was sick of his practices, of his traditions. He was probably a non-conformist guy who didn't want to put up with all the polytheist bullshit and with all the partying around idols and dancing naked and this and that. And he was more interested in Christianity and Judaism and in Christian and Jewish traditions. And the thing is, he had also very close people to him who were Christians, and he knew of Jewish traditions because Jews were all around Arabia as well as people who just settled there, not people who stayed there for any holy reason. So he probably got many of his ideas from those people. He got many of those ideas wrong, as we can see in the Quran. I also want to discuss that very much in details in a series or a video very soon. All the things that he got wrong about Christianity and Judaism, but that's what I think of it. He just wanted to create something different. He wanted to get the support of the Christians and the Jews too. He spoke to the people. Other people noted those things. Some people noted things that shouldn't be noted, like how he jizzed on Aisha's clothes and stuff like that. But yeah, all of that came into
strange, yeah.
But all of that came into existence as the Quran. It later became Islam. But I think the Islam that we know now is more a result of the caliphates long after Muhammad, not very much a product of Muhammad himself. I don't even believe that Muhammad ever thought it would be possible to spread Islam this much.
Okay. Now, if you take all this information that you have now, if you take a look at all the things that you have gone through, where you are more rational now and you use reason more than emotion, is that something that you would attribute to the fact that there are more and more ex-Muslims at the moment? Or is it just that because we have social media, we hear more about them or of them?
No, I do believe we have also we have also proof that that there are more ex-Muslims. I believe the internet is the most brilliant thing that has happened in history so far, which we always say when something happens in history. But the internet is an extremely brilliant thing because it suddenly has increased our development, our understanding of the world around us so quickly in such a great way. And of course, it helps people around the world gather more information, have more intercultural interactions, and make people see the differences between religions and cultures. The rise of ex-Muslims is a thing. I wouldn't say that's only, I wouldn't say we only see it that way because we hear more of those people. But even if we just look at studies made by Gallup or by Pew Research or by other organizations, we can see that that more and more people in the Islamic world identify as less religious or as only identifying as Muslim and not really following the religion, or saying, I don't believe in Allah anymore at all. And those numbers are getting higher and higher. And I'm saying this wherever I go, and I'll say it again. But we have seen so many reports. If you just go on a Google search from Saudi Arabia, from Jordan, from Turkey, Indonesia, and so many other countries, where even religious authority themselves have started warning the population about the rising danger of atheism and Christianity, apostasy.
Well, I mean, come on. I spent a lot of time in Doha and Abu Dhabi, and we had people in the office who simply didn't care. They went out with us in the evening. They went out to clubs with us. They went and ate with us during Ramadan. They simply did not care. And when they came to me, and they said, okay, how many days did Allah take again to create the earth? Was it 7? And then I had to tell them, no, it's 6 or 8, depending where you read and things like that. So they knew very little about Quran and about Islam. And they didn't worry about it. For them, it was a cultural thing. For them, it was just, you go on a Friday, you have your social life at the mosque, you meet some people, some brothers, cousins, and things like that. And that was it. They didn't care about the religious aspect of Islam. They didn't worry about heaven and hell. Come on, this was stupid. That's it. This is what I see now, that more and more people are coming into this internet sphere and saying, excuse me, I never heard this about Islam. And suddenly they are being confronted with facts and with things from within the Quran, like exactly what you are doing. That's why I love your approach, because you are taking what you look and you say, excuse me, this doesn't make sense. I never heard this before. Let's go and take a closer look. And that's what you're doing. So that's great. And this is why I like what you're saying. Okay, you've already said what you're going to be doing next. So this is the whole profile of what your channel is going to be like. So you're going to continue looking at the facts and delivering more background information.
Yeah, well, I would say, to be very honest with you, at the beginnings, my intention wasn't to inform Muslims or skeptic Muslims about all the things they need to know on Islam. At first, my intention was to inform the non-Muslims about Islam, but later I realized the potential of my reach and what I can do with that, what I actually need to do. It's a responsibility. And then I started to address more things that skeptic Muslims, or even convinced Muslims or ex-Muslims who still have doubts, to present things that they need to know about Islam, things that they haven't thought about before, or even things that they knew about, but they didn't think about those things in a different way, objectively, with a free mind, rationally. And that has sort of become my main thing around these times. That's what I'm trying to do. And I think it's a good approach. I think a lot can be done with that, because that's how I left the religion.
How do you see this current thing? I mean, for me, it's just reeks of desperation, where they go and they say, well, science is still on our side and things like that. And then on the other hand, you have Sinéad O'Connor, or how do you, when you see these things, how do you slot them?
Well, the thing is, I would say 100 years ago, 200 years ago, no Muslim cared about the image of Islam, about that it's represented in the world, that it's presented in the world as a brutal and aggressive religion that can't be combined with common sense and science and this and that at all. That's a quite new thing that only started a few decades ago, because Islam suddenly started to connect with other religions, to make interfaith relations and this and that. And especially 50 years ago or 40 years ago, the Islamic organizations, the OIC, started kind of determining the international image of Islam. And that's also when people started, especially after 9/11 now, for the last 2 decades, that's especially when people started to try and more bring science and Islam together, and deliberately misrepresent Islam in order to make it look like it's totally in accordance with science. Although if you look at it rationally, without taking any sides, anyone can see that it's not. It's complete nonsense. And it even started. I made a video about that very recently, actually, about what the Quran says on the sun sinking in a muddy spring, and the moon emitting its own light. In both cases, you can take the Sahih International Translation, for example. If you look at all the translations of those verses of the moon emitting its own light or the sun sinking in a muddy spring say exactly what I just said and are scientifically considered complete bullshit. But the Sahih International Translation, for example, which started coming out and being edited only recently, suddenly includes things like as if the sun is setting in a muddy spring, or calls the light of the moon a reflected light. So you see that in the recent times, Muslims have started to more and more defend this religion in any way possible and allow in no way the religion to be at fault. But the thing is, at the same time, we are also waking up. At the same time, I'm doing my part of the job. Many other people are doing theirs, and many more people are getting to realize that this religion is just nonsense.
Yeah.
It's not. Well, it's not scientific. It's complete nonsense. About Sinead O'Connor, I don't even want to.
That was not serious.
What a nut job.
Okay, but yeah. Okay, but now the feminist in me is coming out, and I need to ask this, because we were starting to talk about this earlier, about female genital mutilation and things like that. Let's start very soft. What is your stance, or how do you see the development of women veiling themselves when they come to a non-Muslim country?
Can you elaborate on that question?
If a woman leaves Oman, gets on a plane, and she arrives in London, and she's a pretty girl, and she's running around in abaya, and she sees the other pretty girls running around Hyde Park in their little next to nothings, and she has to run around in a niqab or abaya. How do you see the impact of the society that they come to on a woman that arrives in the country? How would you think she would feel?
Well, I don't know. It's a very complicated thing that I think about so often. I'm still thinking about it. That's why I don't want to. I even don't want to talk much about what I think on things like burqa bans and this and that, because the whole issue, I think about it so often. Try to have empathy with those people. But yeah, to a bit closer to your question, actually, I would say most women that I have seen, that I have experienced, coming from the Islamic world into Europe, and seeing those people run around like that, dressed like that, going to parties, talking about each other's beauty, getting compliments and this and that. Many of those people start having many complexities in their head about their own lifestyle, about their own restrictions in their own life.
Right.
Not even in Europe. I mean, we don't even have to go to Europe. We can start with Turkey. I have seen so many people in Turkey, even, because Turkey is a country where secularism and Islamic sentiments are kind of within each other, totally connected. I have seen so many Muslim girls, women who are veiled, who are very much depressed about what they see and when they look at themselves, because on one side they know that they have to cover up like this because their religion tells them so. Their family taught them to do so. Their father literally forced them to do so. On the other side, they just want to be like those people outside, like anyone else. I wouldn't say that's true for most. I wouldn't say that's true for all veiled Muslims. I have seen many Muslims who even want to cover themselves up more when they see European women walk around half naked, as they call it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are both sides. It's a very complicated thing. I'm still thinking about those things. I don't know.
Okay, let's go one level deeper. What about FGM?
Oh, yeah.
That's my last question today.
That depends very much on what Muslim on which Muslims we are talking about, on what cultural background we're talking about. I mean, many Muslims, I would say the vast majority, not the vast majority, but I would say, you know, the relative majority among Muslims would say that FGM is a horrible thing, especially if they come from Hanafi backgrounds like Turkey or the Balkans or, you know, Central Asia, this and that. They would consider it an abhorrent thing. It wouldn't be any fans of that, and would be almost as opposed to that as a regular Western person is. But many others, especially in Africa and in the Middle East and the Arab world, are totally in favor of that. So that's really a problem, you know, talking about that specific issue. I think that's one of the most problematic, most polarizing things about Islam. If you want to critique Islam, if you want to attack it from the outside, because it's just because Muslims don't have a united position on that at all. They differ among each other so much on that topic that you can't go to a Muslim and talk about FGM and you can't get consistent responses from that, because you know they're all different. All of them think something different about it. Some of them justify it completely based on Islamic scripture. Some of them justify it just based on interpretations on Islamic scripture. Others reject it completely based on those things. It's a very harsh thing to discuss, but I would say that the West needs to be much more harsh on those issues. I know it's banned in most countries, in most free countries, but it needs to be much more harshly cracked down on, especially in places like America, like in Minnesota, where the Somalian Muslim community has created their own FGM mafia.
It's quite fun. Thank you for that, because the funny thing is, this is what we started off with today, because this was an article that I picked up where exactly this case was being discussed, where I said it's quite funny that in the US you have now lawyers defending it. Yeah. And this is the sad part. This is why I was asking you about this, for your opinion on this. Is there anything that you want to ask us? Or what do you want to talk about something?
Well, before we do that, Stops, can we just ask AP, how long have you still got?
I can still be here for another 5 to 10 minutes, I believe. Otherwise, if you want to be done.
Okay. I do want to ask you two questions at the end, just your views. So maybe for you to think about, I want to just ask you at the end, the last two things before you go is, what would be your message to Muslims who are watching and to non-Muslims? So maybe that's something for you to think about towards the end. But I also just want to, we've got two other guests that are regular panelists here. Thunderous or TJ, have you got one question each that you want to ask AP?
I think, yeah, well, AP, nice to have an opportunity to speak to you, and thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
I think the only question I can come off as an ex-Muslim myself, from the Pakistani background, do you find sometimes that it's not so much the religion that causes a stumbling block with people to leave the religion of Islam, but the Asian culture that is generic between, say, Muslims, Sikhs, and Hindus, and you have 3 or 4, if you like, patterns that are generic between the 3 of them, and that too can be causing a stumbling block for people to leave the religion of Islam.
Was there a question? I didn't get the question.
Let's just make it a shorter one, Thunderous. Just ask a shorter question if you can.
Yeah. Did you find that there are people who would like to leave Islam, but the culture, the Asian culture, is a stumbling block?
Yeah, sorry, I have a bit of concentration issues today, I guess. I'm very sorry.
No worries.
Well, I would say that's everywhere the case. I would say it's not only in Asia. I would say that's even in Europe the case among new immigrants, or even not probably in North Africa or in the Middle East, but yeah, Asia is actually a good example for that, and so is Europe. I would say that's definitely a factor. That I would say there are two ends to that. You know. That those conditions, being in the middle of being in this dilemma of those cultural groups, and you belonging to one of those cultural groups opposed to the other cultural groups, could be a very big obstacle in front of people leaving the Islamic religion, which is a sad thing to observe. Actually, I didn't even think about it that way. Thanks. But I think it could even lead to encourage some people to leave the religion, because I think that could give some other people, more free-minded people, more non-conformist people, the idea that the other sides have something in common with you that you don't have, because your own religion doesn't allow you to have those things, and you would rather want to have peace with those other cultures. You would rather want to be together with those other cultures. I would say that was, for example, in my case, that's why I come up with this idea. In my case, when I grew up in Germany, I always viewed the German culture, the German people, the way Germans live and think, as something very beautiful, as opposed to how my own people introduced it to me as something bad. And that idea, I think, in the long run, eventually helped me to question my own culture and my own traditions, and to leave the Islamic faith. So I would say, similarly, comparing this to that situation in Asia, I would say it could help some people leave the religion and question things and become more tolerant and rational. But yeah, it could also be a major obstacle in putting them into a more tribalistic situation and preventing the leaving of Islam altogether because of this group mentality.
Great, thank you so much.
I hope you're satisfied with that.
TJ, have you got a question? If not, that's okay.
Yeah. First of all, I want to thank him for his Ghazwa Hind video, because being somebody from India, I think that many Indians are ignorant of this doctrine, because I think that's why there cannot be permanent peace between India and Pakistan, because it's not territorial, it is ideological, and this is part of the ideology. So thank you for that. My question would be, because I know you touched on immigration, this question of demographics. Especially when it comes to Europe and when it comes to like the West in general, how important is it that Europe retains its demographic majorities?
I would say it's very important. I mean, the thing is, there's always a dangerous thing, not a dangerous thing, but a very sensitive thing to talk about. Because if you give one opinion that is somehow, in some way, or can in some way be considered close to the much demonized far right, then you can directly call me a racist and a far right and a xenophobic and just shut me down immediately. But I would say that it's actually very important for Europeans to protect the demographic picture that they have right now, or even the picture that they had before. Because the thing is, I'm not saying this because I believe that white people are divine creatures that shouldn't be poisoned by different races and stuff like that. That's not at all what I think. But what I think is that culture plays a very great role, and you don't have to be a European far right guy or whatever to agree on that. You could also be a regular Muslim guy, a regular Hindu, a regular this, a regular that. You could be anything. To see that your culture definitely plays a huge role. Your traditions, your past, your history, and your community plays a great role in shaping the norms, the current norms of your culture. And undoubtedly, the Western culture has proven to be very, very much more successful, far more successful than surrounding cultures like South America or Eastern Europe or the Islamic world, North Africa, and so on. We have values of freedom of speech, of freedom in general, of tolerance, of accepting homosexuals, even if you don't like it, and stuff like that. And that's a result of the culture that we have. If you now want to recklessly change those demographics and go into the demographic shift and accept a different cultural group in masses into your country that has complete different views on those things, then your culture will inevitably change and you won't like it. You can be on the far left of the political spectrum or anywhere. You can be in the middle, you can be on the right. You won't like it because you have values, even if you are on the left or on the right. You have values in your country that you have because you are in your culture, in your country. And those people don't have those values. They don't share those values. This is not a hateful thing to say. This is basic rational thinking. And
yeah. I certainly agree with you. And I don't think it's far right to point that out, that countries are entitled to protect their borders and what they feel is their culture, to welcome other cultures in. But as Australia said at some point in the past, I think it was with the female prime minister, she said that was a Christian country. You come in here, you follow our values. We don't mind having you here, but where your values and ours conflict, our values take precedence. And I think that's the message that you just never hear and would never hear in Europe or the UK or whatever the case is.
Yeah, I wish. Or you can hear it in Poland, but
yes, exactly. But then, of course, everybody labels Poland far right. So that's why so many people are terrified of saying anything, as you quite rightly pointed out. Then you get labeled with this. People can't argue against it, so it's easier to throw a label. So a couple of quick last questions.
I want to be quickly very fair about this. I want to be very fair in that I want to say that there is also some fault on people on my side who think the way I think, in that we could explain far better what we think and why we think the demographic shift is not a great idea. I think many people, when we say that demographic shift is something to be afraid of or to be that we should be careful about, they think immediately of racism and white supremacy and this and that, and then don't want to listen to it anymore. And the side that makes those proposals also doesn't want to talk about it much longer. I think we should just try to communicate much better with each other and try to communicate the reasons why we think these things. We don't hate each other. People who hate each other are a tiny minority in the population, and no one takes them seriously.
Yeah, no, I agree, and presenting that message, repeatedly is necessary. I agree, because otherwise, we just allow people to paint us with a brush if we make these comments. So I totally agree. A couple of last questions. One, do you ever do any, or are you considering any formal debates or informal debates with Muslims, or do you purely do videos, or do you engage with Muslims in some formal or informal settings?
Well, I have Muslim friends, obviously, many actually, but in terms of Islam discussions, I don't very much. I actually tried to contact two quite well-known Muslim apologists, Muslim talkheads here on YouTube or on other platforms that I contacted them very peacefully, said, hey, it would be nice if you could have a discussion about things. It didn't really work out. They don't really approach me the same way I approached them. They usually think I insult their religion, so that they have to treat me like I don't know, Hitler or something. But yeah, I'm not very open to debates, to public discussions with Muslim apologists, and I've said that from the very beginning, which is and I simply don't think that's a great thing to do from my side, because I don't think a fundamentalist Muslim audience that supports those people, who are also usually fundamentalist people, are not a great target audience. I think I wouldn't like to spend 1, 2, 3 days on concentrating my whole energy on that, and then have no one change their mind and let them celebrate some form of victory by insulting me, like it happened only recently between David Wood and Mohammed Hijab, where David Muhammad was a complete gentleman. Muhammad Hijab started insulting him personally on so many levels throughout the entire time, and afterwards he's suddenly the guy who won the debate.
Yes, I mean, the only thing I would say in response to you is that, you know, it's not necessarily, hopefully there's other people, and I guess it depends who your target audience is. Oh, for us, for me, certainly in the Jinn&Tonic, we hope it's people who are attempting to think critically, Muslims who, I'm sure you've come across many of them, who are, you know, questioning things and want to hear different perspectives. And those are the people that I think potentially could be reached. But I do take your point, you know, that
I would say it's a waste of time.
So again, you do.
Putting so much energy into it and hoping to convince one person in the audience, I think it's a waste of time. I can do much better if I concentrate on my own work.
Yeah, no, fair enough. So just to finish off with then those two questions I'll ask you to again, thank you so much for joining us. To kind of finish it off, what message might you give, you know, general message would you give to Muslims who are watching, and then perhaps a second message to ex-Muslims as your sort of parting words, if you like?
Well, thank you so much. What I wanted to say to Muslims, I actually want to make this clear soon. I'm just trying to put it together what to exactly say, but it goes kind of in the direction. I just want to say, Muslim viewers, I used to be where you are right now. If you see people criticizing Islam, if they are ex-Muslims, non-Muslims, even reformist Muslims, and you see them criticizing Islam, it's totally fine if you are offended as a Muslim, but that's not the right reaction. That's not the right response, because I would say your religion essentially your religion and its fundamental scriptures insults and criticizes other people too. The most reasonable, the most useful, the most rational thing that we can do in our time, especially since we have the internet, is to have dialogues, to have conversations, and to share our negative opinions about each other's beliefs and ideologies and doctrines. When yours is addressed, you might react a bit offended and angry. I have been there too. I haven't stayed there. I found out of that, and you can do that too. I'm not saying that every Muslim should leave Islam. I'm not expecting that. But I would say that every Muslim should understand why ex-Muslims, why non-Muslims are critiquing Islam. They should try to have a bit of an understanding, and should try to see things from our perspective. But the final suggestion to Muslims is, please stop listening to your Islamic apologists, because they don't want to tell you about Islam. They want to strengthen your Islamic faith. Please read the Quran. Don't listen to me. Forget about me. Don't listen to me. Read the Quran, read the Hadith, find out for yourself, make your decision, and you will probably come to a conclusion that we all will agree on. To ex-Muslims, I would say, don't be so fierce because you left the religion and you are so angry about it. I was there too. If you want to criticize Islam, use your words properly in a respectful manner. Not against the religion. I don't do that either. No one cares about that. But against the people. I don't have anything to say.
Do you think that it's okay to mock? Do you think it's okay to mock
the religion? Yes. The people.
Ridicule?
Yes.
No, fair enough. And on that note, I want to thank you so much for being with us. It's been an absolute pleasure. We could go on for hours. Perhaps we can have you again in some point in the future. It's been a delight. I've posted, and I will post again as I'm speaking to you now. So if you're watching this, I'm posting the Apostate Prophet's YouTube channel. Please do subscribe. There's brilliant videos on there. He's almost hitting 60,000. Let's help him hit 60,000 subscribers. Thank you so much again, Apostate Prophet, for joining us. Hopefully we can get you on again. It's been an absolute pleasure on behalf of everybody watching.
What should Muslims do with Islam?
What should they do?
Oh, it's your tagline. We're asking for your tagline.
Oh, stay away from Islam.
There you go.
Thanks so much, guys, for having me here. Thanks, everyone, for joining and listening. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Are we all going off then, or do you want me
We're going to stay on and have people joining us now to have discussions, so forth. I won't burden you. So if you're done, if you just hang up.
If you like arguing,
sure. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much. Bye, guys.
And please, if you ever feel like coming on and just sort of joining, and you want to listen, or if you want to bounce an idea off somebody, if you want to ask something or something, please don't let anything stop you, because we're here every Friday. And if you want to, get anything, or just pop in, ask a question, and just go to the chat and ask, or whatever. And if you want to, just contribute something, if there's a question that we are asking and you think, no, you should look at it like that, please do so, because I love being corrected. I love being, I like to learn. So that would be great.
I can totally creep in, or just come in and yell at you people or something. I might do.
Anytime. You're more than welcome.
Okay. Thank you so much, guys. Stay away from
you again as well. Take care.
You too.
Brilliant. Hopefully that was of value to everybody here. What we'll do now is put the link into the main chat. So there is a Muslim in here who's been waiting to join us. Yes, or M Stacks Gang, as his other name is known in the Hangouts. If you are a Muslim specifically, we are looking at this moment in time. If you are a Muslim and you want to come in here and have a conversation about anything you've heard or some other topic, I'm now going to post the link. Please do, let me just make sure I get the correct link here. And also to post the Apostate Prophets channel. So there's the Apostate Prophets channel. Here is the link to join us. And we'll add that in. It's now 9:53, so we'll just make a note on the time there. So there we go. We have posted the link. If you want to join us and you're a Muslim specifically at this moment in time, please do join us. We are waiting for you. So guys, over to you in the panel until we get anybody that joins us. Your thoughts on everything that AP said, or any other comments? TJ, Thunderous, Stops?
I thought it was overall, a pretty good talk. I think, obviously getting a different perspective. And I've seen many of his videos, and he does a pretty good job overall. So I think that the fact that he puts himself out there, that he shows his face, obviously, so everybody knows who he is, and despite being an ex-Muslim, obviously, we know the trouble that apostates have. So I got to give my hats off. I got to tip my hat, because it takes a brave individual to do what he's doing, I think.
Yeah, I think it's the one thing that needs to happen more on YouTube, or big subscribing channels that deal with Islam, particularly interviews or more in-depth interviews with ex-Muslims as to how do they navigate their way out of Islam, because every story is going to be original. Every story is going to have some kind of epiphany as to what they saw, how they saw it, why they saw it, what route they took, what kind of hindrance or stumbling blocks did they come against, what kind of threats. Because some people, let's be honest, will have escaped, with the skin of their teeth, would have had real threats against their life, ostracized in the community, ostracized from the family. Maybe have had to leave countries as well, purely just because they wanted to leave Islam. So if anything, it's motivated me to think about, encouraging more people to have interviews, to give their own life experiences, because you just never know where that one person who is listening to a show, listening to an interview, and says, you know what, I identify with that situation, that is my situation, and can motivate and encourage them to take the stand that they've heard from the person being interviewed.
Yes, obviously our intention, and if anybody knows, yes, and it's our intention, if anybody knows, prominent ex-Muslims like Apostate Prophet and others, especially if you know them personally, or you can give me some contact details or Stop's contact details, we will do our best to get them onto the show here as well. I think more diverse voices like that, because I think, ex-Muslims are incredibly valuable and powerful, because they've been there, they've been through it, they've grown up with that in many cases. And I get a lot of messages through from the ex-Muslims, particularly on Facebook, showing how many people are, changing their mind. They've been watching the videos. They've been very, resistant to it. And over time, as they've listened to, like Apostate Prophet and others, they've slowly started to think for themselves, to go and look at the scriptures and the sources themselves, and they've come to the conclusion that, it's not, real or true, whatever the case is. So please do share with us if you know anybody else that is a prominent ex-Muslim that would like to join the show, as we've done tonight with the Apostate Prophet. I'm just waiting here as well to see if we'll get our
what he was saying is the secular Turks, what Ataturk was doing 100 years ago was suppress Islam. And that was also wrong, because you can't suppress an ideology like that. It will live on. This is what we saw in communism, for example, in Russia. Christianity, Orthodox Russian beliefs, they carried on, they continued. And this was, at the end of the day, I'm not drunk. The resistance. And this is quite funny that all these things survived, even though it was suppressed, even though it was really, everything was done to kill off Christianity. It did not work. So I don't think that you can simply kill off an ideology like that. And the same way as you can't kill off democracy, I don't think you can. And there's always going to be people who are going to idealize or idolize communism. Of course, the same way as you get neo-Nazis today. So ideologies can't be killed and they can't be restricted by borders.
Yes, the internet, and as you say, the open communication we have now as a global society is reaching places that it could never reach before. And obviously what we're seeing in certain places at certain times is an attempt to restrict this, because the authorities in certain Muslim countries can see the power of the internet, the ability for people to access the information they've never had before. And this is potentially very scary, that people can start thinking for themselves, can go and look at the sources. They don't just follow blindly what their imam or their scholar says. They can go and look it up, as AP quite rightly pointed out. So, these are the things that I think will, in time, be the best weapons, for want of a better word, as well as the ex-Muslims, against the spread of this ideology. So, anything else anybody wants to bring up? I am still waiting for our.
In the chat, people need to remember that there are a lot of trolls out there who pretend to be Muslims, who are not really Muslims. People love doing that for some reason.
What's that? Stops?
I'm telling people to be careful. If somebody baits them with, like, I love Muhammad heart more than anything, don't immediately fall for it.
Yeah. I mean, yes, there are,
Stops. That's very, that's a very, Islamophobic comment of you. I think you should take it back.
Oh, yes. Now you've really given it to me.
Yeah. Now the conversation ends, right?
Okay, so we are calling, we won't use Christian Prince's term of calling all Abduls. We are calling Muslims to come and join us. Now's your chance. I've put the thing. There we go. We now have him. He's a Muslim who's going to join us.
Okay, then I'm going to keep quiet for a while.
Hey, whoops, wrong one.
Oh.
Hey, M Stacks, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hi, good evening to you. How are you doing? M Stacks and I have chatted a little bit in private hangouts, so I know of him. Welcome to the show. Obviously, you've heard, Apostate Prophet. You've got your view. So, yeah, over to you. What's your thoughts on what you've heard or anything else?
Can you just fill me in a bit? Was he a Sufi that left Islam? Was he a Sunni that left Islam? I jumped in a bit late.
I think he said he was a Sufi. I had to step away at one point. He said he was a Sufi.
Yeah, I think we have a phenomenon these days that many Sufis and Shias and Ahmadis, these small sects in Islam, many of them are leaving because what they believe in the beginning is a very corrupt, mistranslated, misinterpreted from the Quran. So I would say when they leave Islam, they're not actually leaving Islam, they're just leaving a cult, a small sect of Islam, whereby we don't even class them as, we don't class Sufis as Muslims.
Yeah, I know. I'm aware that that's probably the view of some people. Is it also your view that, hey, any Muslim that leaves is not really, it was never really a true Muslim, or was never really a knowledgeable Muslim? Is that your claim,
No, I don't say that.
Okay, so you do believe that there are Muslims that are knowledgeable, that have left, and in their view, their minds, they've got good reasons, right?
Yeah.
You obviously disagree with them, presumably, but
yeah, I disagree with them. Yeah, but they might have their reason for them leaving in it. But yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, what do you think, from your point of view, then, is the strongest reason in favor of being a Muslim? If there were Muslims watching this, which presumably are, we've got 120 viewers, and you wanted to, obviously, we've had the Apostate Prophet on with his views, and now you were here. If people were thinking about Islam and they were thinking about what the Apostate Prophet had said, and you wanted to come on and give the other side of the aisle, so to speak, what do you think is the strongest reason for being or staying or converting to Islam?
Staying Islam is just basically the way of life. It's everything encompassed in one. Basically, I would advise people before if they're looking to join Islam, or if they're on the edge of leaving Islam, to read the Qur'an from the interpretations of the first 3 generations, as the Prophet said, the companions, the first Sahabas, Tabi'een, and Tabi'een. Do not go to the 8th, 9th generation where they mistranslated, misinterpreted the book and added their own misconceptions. And I would just say, just read the Quran, read the Sahih, authentic hadith. Don't read weak hadith. That's why I think people just read something like, why did the Prophet drink camel urine? Why did he do this? Why? Just check the chain of narrations. If you're not knowledgeable, don't be misconceived. Don't be as ignorant and or say to people, why did the Prophet do this, when you don't know yourself. Check the chain of narrations. Look if it's Sahih. There is some hadiths in Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim that I don't deem authentic. Like I would say,
but what on what basis are you not deeming it authentic when they are deemed Sahih by scholars? So what authority have you got to not deem them authentic?
I'm an educated Muslim rabbi. Like, let me give you an example. The marriage of the Prophet with Aisha. If you actually look at the hadith thoroughly, without any bias, you will come to the conclusion that is actually there is. I would say at minimum, shubhat, a lot of doubt. There should be a lot of doubt in your head from this hadith. I checked the chain of narrations, whereby there's this guy in the chain of narrations. There's 4 people. One of them name is Ibn Hashim. He is a person who was very reliable in the beginning, but after he migrated to Iraq or Iran, one of them, he was approximately 70 years old, and he was narrating this hadith, and he had also mental problems. He was hallucinating. He had all of these issues, and he narrated this, and people actually take this as sahih for some reason. But once you just look at these chain narration, just look who's narrating these hadiths, check their biographies, you can add 1 plus 1, and you will see this it doesn't add up. And even then, this is an anomaly whereby the Prophet always used to marry wives older than him, and Aisha is the only person that is younger than him. If you add all of these anomalies and check for yourself, and don't believe everything you see. These are people are called muqaylid. They are blind followers. Just check everything.
Let me ask you this. So just so I understand your position, do you believe that he married a 6-year-old, or do you reject that?
Yeah, I don't believe he married a 6-year-old. I would say I would come on the consensus over 14.
Okay, so you think she was over 14. So presumably then, obviously, you disagree with people like Ali Dawa and Muhammad Hijab and so forth, who actually put out a document and who are defending the claim of her being 6 and obviously consummating at 9, right?
I actually haven't seen that. If you could just send me the link to that, I haven't seen that before.
Oh, okay. I'll look it up. I'm going to open it up to my colleagues as well. So let's make sure we give MStax a chance to respond. But I've got some of my colleagues in here who obviously can have a conversation. But before I bring them in, what I didn't hear from you was like the reason. So for example, you might say to me, okay, well, Islam is true because, the Quran is the perfect word of God, and my reason for it is X, Y, and Z. So maybe you can share in your view, what do you think the strongest reason is? Because obviously, if you say read the Quran, etc., that's cool. But what I'm looking for is, what is the strongest reason, and why do you think it's a strong reason? Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's many reasons, but I'm trying.
Give us your strongest, or one of the strongest that you think should convince other people.
Should convince other people. I think Islam itself as an ideology gives you a structure, gives you a way of life that edges over any other ideologies, including secular, including Christianity, Judaism, whereby you become a cleaner person, you become a more caring, a more loving, if you follow the way of the Prophet. And I'm not trying to be what's it called? I'm not trying to indoctrinate you, like, you like know, you probably have your own concept about Prophet Muhammad, but what I deem as sahih, probably you lot don't have. I'm talking about he was a caring, loving person. Emulate the Prophet in that way, and you'll become a better person as a society, and you'll be able to share, love, care for other people.
Okay, so obviously, in our view, I think there's a little bit of a cherry picking going on. You're looking for the best things, and I don't deny that Muhammad, did some good things. I don't think anybody would deny that. But things like my co-host is saying here, why did Muhammad encourages men to enjoy raping female captives and not worry about the prices on the slave market, according to multiple Sahih hadiths?
Yeah, I will need the references for that, and I will reply to you as soon
Yeah,
as
I'm sure you can provide that. So, Stops, if you've got the hadiths there, then we can do that. But presumably, so you think that Muhammad is an example to follow, although I think perhaps there's a bit of cherry picking going on. But you went back. But something else you said there is that, hey, Islam does this and this better. Do you not think that people can be clean people, good people, etc. with Islam, or do you think that Islam makes people even better? And if you think it makes them even better, how so?
Can you just repeat that again, Carl? You're cutting off.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me there? Hopefully you can. You suggested that Islam makes people clean, good people, etc. Let me ask two questions rather than conflate the two. Do you think people can be good, clean people without Islam?
Yeah, they can. They can necessarily. They can. But I think Islam gives you an edge whereby you have to, like, if you want to be, like, if you're not a Muslim, you become loving, you become caring out of your own nature. But if you're a Muslim, you are given an order to become caring, to be loving. And if you don't do this, you get this punishment. So it's a hujjah, it's compulsory to do this A, B, C, D. You have to do that. And if you're not Muslim, you can do that, but you don't have to do it. You feel me?
Okay, but let me ask you the question then, based on what you've just said. Do you think it's a better person who does things for the betterment of their fellow human beings, or do you think it's a better person who only does that because of the threat of punishment? Which one do you think is a better person?
I think if you look at both perspectives, I think both of them would be deemed okay.
No, but which is better? Because they're not equal, right?
Yeah, they're not equal. I would say the first one is actually better.
So the best person who does it on their own, right? Without, yeah. So in that respect, then I don't think that's a good response for you to say, hey, it makes you better because there's this threat afterwards, the threat in there, because I think you've agreed that, if people were good without that threat, in fact, that's actually better.
But if that's we're not speaking realistically in this day and age. I don't think people do this out of their own love, out of their own. It just happening in this world. Emulating another person, that could be Marcus Garvey, that could be Prophet Muhammad, that could be Jesus, that could be Moses. You emulating another person, I think, is the best criteria, or just your influence in life, and not just following your desires, and that will just influence you. But if you're emulating a person itself, I think you have a structure. He did this, that. He was loving, he was caring, he was doing this, so I'm just going to emulate it. But realistically speaking, I think the person is actually better. But who's going to do that?
Well, many people do. I think you would agree. Nobody's claiming to be perfect, but many people do that without having to follow somebody else.
Like yourself.
I'm one of them. I don't claim to be perfect, but I care about my fellow human beings, etc. I want people to believe what is true. I think I've been through some of these things on a private hangout. You might have been there, etc.
Yeah.
And my colleague has posted here into the chat. I don't know if you can see it. I'm happy to read it to you, and then get your views on this. I mean, multiple hadiths have been quoted here, and I don't want to overwhelm you because obviously you don't have the references. And this, by the way, I don't
have the back chat. Can you just give me the back chat, Carl? When I joined here, it just gave me the call link. No back chat to this.
Yeah, is there a back chat to this? Let me see. If you're on here, let me just see if I can. No, we can't at the moment because we're live. We're live. So the moment we go off air, then that will be available to you. Can you not see the other link? No, I can read it to you. By the way, I just want to make it clear here as well, because I like to think I'm honest and upfront about this. M-Stacks, we're not here to make you look foolish and to try and do some of the things.
Come on, bro. I don't mind. Just
no, but that's not our intention. As attempted to happen with me on Raspek's channel the other night. So that's not our point. So we're obviously going to give you some things to think about, because there's been multiple hadiths that's been put into the chat here. But I'm going to read you one and then get your thoughts on this.
Yep.
I'm going to butcher the name, so please forgive me. I don't pronounce Arabic names very well. But I'm just going to start here. Abu Sa'id, this is Abu Sima said to Abu Sa'id, Abu Sa'id, did you hear Allah's messenger, may peace be upon him, mentioning Al-Azari, Azal, sorry, my pronunciation is terrible.
Azal.
Al-Azal, thank you, Stops. I mean, you can
Azal
read
is
this
the
if you
coitus
like.
interruptus when you withdraw before you have an orgasm.
I mean, you're welcome to read the Stops, or I will, I don't mind. So he said Abu Sa'id, hello, hang on a sec for us. He said, did you hear Allah's messenger mentioning Al-Azal? Yes, and he added, we went out with Allah's messenger, may peace be upon him, on the expedition to the Stops, if you want to pronounce that there.
No, it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
The point is, we took captive some excellent Arab women. That's the most important thing.
Okay, we took captive some excellent Arab women, and we desired them, for we were suffering from absence of our wives. But at the same time, we also desired ransom for them. So we decided to have sexual intercourse with them. But by observing Azal, withdrawing the male sexual organ before emission of semen to avoid contraception. But we said we are doing an act whereas Allah's messenger is amongst us. Why not ask him? So we asked Allah's messenger, may peace be upon him. And he said, it does not matter if you do or not do it. For every soul that is to be born up to the day of resurrection will be born. Sahih Muslim Book 8, Hadith 3371. So Stax, listening to that, what is your thoughts on that?
What's your point from the hadith? Why are you taking that from the hadith? What's your exact point?
Okay, so
it encourages, Muhammad is encouraging his men to enjoy orgasm when they are raping female captives, not to worry about the prices on the slave market, but to enjoy this to the full hilt so that they can have their orgasm and that's it.
Raping, I didn't hear the word raping in there. Is that your interpretation?
No, it says there that they want to have sex with them. They're not asking. They just killed the husbands, they killed the brothers, they killed the fathers. So I don't think those women will come, oh, thank you very much. You killed my father, you killed my husband, you killed my brother. Please come and have sex with me now. This is slaves. They are captives. They have made captives and they want to have sex with them and they don't want to withdraw. They want to enjoy their orgasm. It doesn't mention the word rape, but I think anyone with 2 working brain cells can see that we're talking about rape here.
Okay, basically, I don't know if this hadith is sahih, but I will check it. But from face value, I will say this is a time of war. Am I correct? Is this a time of war after the war? And can you just give me what war this was? If you know what war.
It doesn't really matter. It's the point is that Muhammad says, enjoy raping the women. Don't worry about whether they're getting pregnant or not.
I think that's a misinterpretation of the hadith, whereby I think what's it called? If I'm right, it's a time of war. Is men and what's it called? The Prophet's men. They had war. Obviously the Prophet won the war, and the women are there. So what is the best thing for you to do with the women? Just leave them there by themselves, fending for no one. I would think the best solution for that would be take them with you, take them into your home, feed them, look after them, and I would give you a hadith that supports that narrative.
Stax, let me jump in.
That's not what we're talking about.
Let me jump in there, Stax.
No, I'm sure.
The claim is not about that at this moment in time, and whether it's war or not, the claim is that Muhammad said it is okay to have sexual intercourse and to ejaculate inside a female slave. And what is your response to that? Because I think reasonable that female slaves are not going to consent. They're not going to say, thank you very much. Yes, you may do this. And in fact, if you're a slave, you can't do that anyway. You're a property of somebody else. So that, putting aside your other things, do you think that is okay? Whether it's a time of war or not a time of war?
What makes you say that they don't consent? Because I can give you explicit evidence in the hadith whereby the Prophet actually married a person in that situation where their husband was killed, and he married that person to look after them, to please them, to look after them. So why would make you say they don't consent?
This is a different hadith.
I know, but you have to contextualize everything. You can't just say this is the hadith.
No, we don't.
You do have to. Sorry.
No, we don't.
What makes you say that?
We don't have to.
Who told you that?
This is a hadith. This is a hadith in Sahih Muslim where Muhammad says, Don't worry. It doesn't say, think about what I said. It says, it does not matter if you do or not do it. For every soul that is born is up to the day of resurrection will be born. So it's up to God to decide, not for you to decide. So go and enjoy your orgasm. That is what this hadith says. We are not talking about the collection of hadiths and whether another hadith says something different. We're talking about one specific hadith here. We're talking about 15 hadiths which all say the same thing. Please enjoy your orgasm. This is all sahih, classified as sahih by Islamic scholars. They all say the same thing. So it doesn't matter whether this is at war, because I don't think there is a context. I, with my morality, cannot see a context in which raping a woman is okay and enjoying your orgasm is okay. I cannot see a context.
Can I just add something?
Go ahead, yeah.
I was just thinking, when you're discussing the hadith on any subject with a Muslim, there's always going to be the word context, or it's a weak hadith, because it's almost like a get-out clause when the subject's too embarrassing. I think for me on this one, maybe quoting the Qur'an where it talks about having 4 wives and all your right hand possesses might be a better strategy, because I was talking about sex. And all your right hand possesses, which is female captives. So
yeah, go ahead.
So
I mean, you and Stacks can have that discussion if you like. Go for it.
It's not talking about wives. It's not talking about. The description is as a possession, as a slave. It's like a property. You own it, so you approach it as you feel like. I think there was one surah that talks about approach your woman as a tilth. So you approach it when and how you'd like to. So if you marry that with the hadith, how do you rationalize that now?
Mistakes, that's over to you. Did you hear what he asked? M-Stacks, are you there? Hello? Hello? Can you guys hear me? Am I coming through okay?
You are thunderous was Stacks,
okay, cool,
speechless.
Cool. Okay, M-Stacks, are you there? Hello?
And he's gone.
No, he's left us. Okay, maybe it's a connection. We can't be sure at this stage, so maybe it's a connection issue. I'll check in the back chat. If you're a Muslim and you're watching what we've just said, and you want to come in and discuss or defend some of the points that have been put to M-Stacks, then please let us know in the chat. We're not going to stay on indefinitely unless we have people that want to have a discussion with us here. There we go. He's back. I think maybe he lost connection. No, nobody kicked you out. You went silent, so we thought something had happened with your connection there. So you're back now. Did you hear what Thunderous said?
Just repeat yourself.
Thunderous, do you want to ask the question again, and then you can have a conversation? Go ahead.
Well, let me just give you the context in it, car. The Quran takes precedence over the hadith. So let me just give you a context to that hadith in it. 1 second. Just pull up my Quran. That's the problem or something, yeah.
That's fine. You can respond, and then I think Thunderous, the gentleman with the V icon, is actually going to ask you or talk about the Quran itself. If you feel the Quran is obviously the stronger thing and you think that brings some context to that hadith, you can do that. And then I think V is going to chat to you about something in the Quran itself. Go ahead.
So, bang, guys, if you want to pull up Quran 2, Surah 2, 234, should the Arabic then read the English for you. والذين يتوفون منكم ويذرون أزواجا يتربصن بأنفسهن 4 أشهر وعشرا فإذا بلغن أجلهن فلا جناح عليكم فيما فعلن في أنفسهن بالمعروف.
Give us the English. M-Stacks, what's the verse and then read us the English. Just give us the verse again.
2:234.
2:234. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What? Yeah. Oh,
go ahead. Are you there? So if I understand you correctly, it is Surah 2, verse 234.
Yes.
Yep. I'll bring that up on screen here. I'll share that for everybody else to see here. Let's present that to everybody.
And those who are taken in death among you and leave wives behind, their wives shall wait 4 months and 10 days. So what you said there is not straight away when their wives bang, you just go to them and have orgasm with them. So you got that mistaken there. And when they fulfill their terms, there is no blame upon you for what they do themselves in an acceptable manner. And Allah is fully acquainted with you, what you do. Okay, let me just carry on with that. 1 second.
What do you under? So what is that? What do you think that's refuting or responding to?
Basically saying, and the wives, people are dead. Basically, when the husbands are dead, and you have the wives, be honorable, look after them, and wait 4 months before you try to marry them, or that's what I would say. But let me just carry on with my explanation. Okay. Another verse says in 2:40, and those of you die and leave behind wives should bequeath for their wives a year maintenance and residence without turning them out. But if their wives leave, there is no sin on you for which they do themselves. Umar Atiyah reported, and mourn for the women. Do not go to them. Do not entice them, and leave to mourn for their husbands, and then bring them to your homes and look after them. Reported by Muslim. Basically, what I'm trying to just say is, yeah, although the hadith is explicit, I'm just trying to tell you, contextualize everything. Look at what the Quran has to say, because the Quran takes precedence over the hadith. That's all I'm trying to say to you. Although you might be correct, all I'm saying is, wives, you just don't go to them as an object. You just look after them, you respect them.
Okay, but actually not the original hadith that Stops brought up was nothing to do with wives, though.
And it's got to do with dead husbands' wives.
They were talking about slaves that
No.
have sex with. Go ahead, guys.
There's
Can you
nothing
tell me
there.
the husbands and when you kill the husbands, the women that are left, something like that, captive white women? Am I correct?
No. They just said they took captive some excellent Arab women. There is nothing about the husbands here.
The problem is, I can't see the hadith. Can you just give me the reference to the hadith? Sahih what? Sorry. Just give me one of them.
It's Sahih Muslim, Book
Yes.
8, Hadith 3371.
Book 8, Hadith 3371.
Yeah.
3371.
3371, 3371. I'll bring it up on screen here. Qur'an X has got a very nice. This is the correct one. Yes, here we go. So I'm going to bring this up on screen as well, so our viewers can see this, and I'll share that, and then we can read it aloud again if you like. So for those who haven't, go and have a look at Qur'an X. They've just redone the website there, and I believe this is this the correct one, Stops?
Yeah, no, 1 second. Yeah, it's correct.
Yes, there we go.
1 second. Just see what you lot are reading.
Can you see it on the screen there?
No, it's not on your. Yeah, he's on your screen now. Yeah.
Yeah, but you can go to Qur'an
Yeah,
X as well, and they've got all the hadiths there as well. So you can do it yourself if you like. But here it is on screen.
Yeah, this is talking about war, and they took captive some Arab women. Yeah.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and absence. For we were suffering from absence of our wives, and also desire on the going to decide our sexual. Yeah, so this is what I was referring to. It's basically talking about taking captive Arab women. But who are they? Are you just taking them?
Okay, but before we before we go there, would you agree that what you read in the Quran does not apply to this hadith?
How do you know that?
Because these are not your wives. So these are captives. In other words, they're slaves. So what you read in the Quran there, that's referring to something completely different. Would you agree?
But these are captive Arab women, yeah. And what I referred to in the Quran was what's it called? These are captives as well. They're captives now. They're your slaves. That's the term that you would have used back then.
What is the point? What is the point that you're trying to make here?
My point, what I'm trying to make here, this hadith, you have to contextualize it with the Quran, because the Quran takes precedence over this hadith.
Okay, so what is the context in which raping a woman and enjoying it is good?
Sorry, it's not raping. Where does it say raping there? That's your interpretation.
Yeah, but I think it's a reasonable interpretation, Mr. X.
And I wouldn't actually interpret it like that, because What about if they gave consent? We don't have the. We can't assume anything.
But MSTEX, they're slaves. They don't have it. They don't have an opportunity to give consent.
Yes, that's correct. But
It says here, we decided to have sexual intercourse with them. That means rape.
It doesn't mean they ask permission, right?
Yes, but it doesn't also mean. On the other hand, we're just interpreting it.
Okay.
Are we? Am I right? Just infer.
Stop doing this.
Oh,
Is there any way that it is okay to do what is being described here?
It's okay to do what's being said. Back then, I would agree. I would agree with that.
Then, I'm talking about today. Would you condemn a person who will, if I were to go and tell you there are some women which are captives, go and have sex with them, and it's okay if you have your orgasm. You don't need to pull out. Enjoy your orgasm. And it's perfectly okay. Don't worry, because I know that you want to get ransom for them. You want to sell them. You want to get money for them like your property. But it's okay to rape them first. And don't worry about whether they get pregnant or not. Would you condemn that if that happened today?
I would. I actually don't have an answer to that.
I rest my case.
You rest your case. Well, listen, what I'm trying to say is, in that context, you're talking about an Arab Peninsula in the desert. You're not talking about the 21st century.
No, but he just asked you about the 21st century, though.
Yeah, 21st century. Yeah, that wouldn't even happen in the first case. It would happen. I don't think that would happen anyway.
No, but if it did, so let's say it was ISIS or it was some other, let's say,
Condemn it. Yeah, obviously I would say that's wrong, isn't it?
Okay, so you are saying that today that's wrong, but in those days you say it was okay.
But in those days, that's your interpretation. You're calling it rape. But all I'm saying is, them women, I can give you examples where you're talking about them slaves. They didn't have a choice to do this. They had the choice. I'm telling you, they were looked after. They were well fed, and they chose.
Okay, can you provide us, MSTAX, with anywhere where it said they had the choice? Can you give me any literature where it specifically says slaves had the choice to reject or to decide for themselves whether they had sex with their captors? Can you provide that anywhere?
Sex with their captives. Are you telling me the Prophet allowed
You made the claim that you specifically said that you can point to somewhere where they had the opportunity to decide for themselves whether they had sex. Can you provide any evidence for that anywhere?
Yeah, but I will provide it. But let's just define the word slave. Are you talking about captives like in
I'm talking about that verse. Should we bring it up again? I'm talking about specifically in the context of that verse. There it is again, so we can all see it. So these women, which were excellent Arab women, that they were taken captive.
From where?
Doesn't matter where it was.
But I'm telling you, it's from war.
Yes, let's go with for the moment assume that it's from war. Okay.
Yeah.
So they've been captive Arab slaves, and our view on this is that they are not given a choice, and if a woman is not asked or given a choice for sex, then that is rape. Okay, now you claim specifically, no, you can show that they did have a choice. Can you provide that for us, please? I don't mind which hadith or Quran verse you'd like to bring where it specifically states that the victors, the people that took these excellent Arab women, allowed them to choose. Can you provide that somewhere?
Them to choose. Didn't I just read the Quranic verse for you, or was you just not listening?
Are you talking about the one where you have to wait 4 months after your wife? Is that the one you were referring to?
Yeah.
That doesn't apply to this in any way. So have you got something else?
So what do you mean? This is a context. This is the hadith being narrated by, what's it called?
The verse you read in the Quran was about waiting after a divorce or after with a wife. These are captives.
Death of a husband.
Or death of a husband. There you go. These are excellent Arab women that are captives. So it's two different things.
Talking about captives in war. Okay.
So, but your claim was that they did have a choice. Can you provide the evidence to where they had a choice as to whether they were allowed to choose to have sex or not?
Yes, but your claim is they didn't have a choice.
Correct, and that's what it says.
It's not my claim. It is in the text. We decided.
Sorry,
it's not we asked them. We decided.
Correct, and there it is, right in front of you. If you want to counter this, MSTAX, just do what you said you would, which is that there is some resource that you can point to where they had the choice of whether they were able to decide whether this was okay? Can you provide that?
You haven't provided any evidence on the country as well, but I'm just trying to provide on the country, you know that, because you're just
Okay, I'm waiting.
inferring. Am I correct? You're just inferring.
We're reading exactly what it says, but you've made the claim that they could. So can you clear this up for us? Because
how did you? You just said I claim I didn't given a choice. Am I correct with that?
So you are seriously saying that they had a choice and they said, please come and have sex with me and please sell me as a slave?
So that it doesn't say sell. So you're talking about the sexual part.
It's we decide. We also desired ransom for them. It says there.
Yeah, actually, I'm actually reading that. But what I'm trying to say to you is here, them captive slaves, they actually wanted someone to look after them, because in that time you would be left in the open to fend for yourself. So actually,
can you provide any evidence that they wanted to be looked after? I mean, that's a separate point from what we're talking about, but just for interest for me and for every other viewer.
Intellectually, you have to think. I mean,
but you're inferring something, Alex. You accused us of inferring when we're reading exactly what it is. Now I'm accusing you of doing the same thing you accused us of. You were inferring that they wanted it. Can you provide any evidence that these excellent Arab women desired to be taken as captive? Otherwise, they would have been left to die in the desert. Can you provide any evidence for that claim?
You like just carry on. Just give me a few minutes.
Are you looking for the evidence? Is that what you're doing at the moment?
Yeah.
What specific evidence are you looking for now? Just so that we're clear.
Yeah, I'm just looking for. You're talking about captive women, where they actually the Prophet told them to treat them well, look after them, fend for them. I'm actually looking for that.
This is the typical apologist approach, that you are looking for something now which is nice. It is raining here. It doesn't matter whether you tell me, yeah, but hang on, in Australia the sun is shining. I'm talking about here. It's raining right here. It doesn't matter whether it's the sun in Australia. It is raining here. This sentence is part of Sahih. It is authenticated by Islamic scholars as being authentic, as being the opinion of Muhammad. And Muhammad says, go ahead and enjoy it. Have your orgasm before you sell the women. And now you are looking for another sentence somewhere which says, well, actually, you should be good to people that you ransom. You should be good to people that you enslave. You should be good to people that you go to another country, you burn the entire village, you kill all the people, you take only the women, you rape them a couple of times, take them back 1,000 kilometers into your own country where you sell them, but be good to them. Are you serious?
I think the problem with you is you take scholastic interpretations and you think when the scholars say something is this, we have to believe it. I think you're talking about a fringe group in Islam. They're called the Mukhalids. They're blind followers. They blind follow a scholar. But that's not me. We actually look if this hadith is actually authentic. I'm just going by with what you're saying. I don't even know if this hadith is authentic, because I'm just, I don't want to waste time.
It doesn't matter. We're talking to you. We're talking to you. We're not talking to a scholar. I am somebody who reads this. I'm somebody who reads the text and then says, well, let me go and ask a Muslim. So a Muslim comes to me and says, Islam is wonderful because it gives you a good life. Well, and then I say, yeah, but hang on, not for these Arab women, because they are being raped and the people are being told, you are quite welcome to rape them. And this is what I see. And what you are telling me is there is a way of explaining this that makes it good for the women to be raped and then sold as slaves. And I'm sorry, I don't see that. It doesn't matter whether this is now Sahih or not. Do you condemn a person who will say such a thing?
Obviously, raping someone without their consent is actually, yes, it's haram in Islam. So I don't know what you're trying to imply from this.
Well, Muhammad said it's not haram. Muhammad says it's good.
No, that's your misinterpreted false inference from that. Hadith.
Okay. Would you condemn Muhammad if he said raping a woman is okay?
Yes, obviously. I would condemn any person for saying rape is okay.
Great. That's all I want to hear. Thank you very much. That's very brave.
Don't try to
say that.
Don't try to misconstrue my statement and say, yo, that's all I wanted to hear. Like, Muhammad actually allowed that. I'm actually on the side where he did not condone this and did not allow any way to happen. So I don't know what you're trying to imply from this hadith, which is a stretch of inference. where he doesn't say actually the women. If he said the women actually spoke and they said, "Yo, we were raped. This will happen to us. This happened to us." If you actually can show me, I say, "Yeah, hadith," I believe you.
No,
You just say
it's not. No, Stacks. It's not about whether this is hadith, whether this is whatever. I am just giving you a story that I read about Muhammad. And if you tell me, if a guy says this, it doesn't matter whether it's Muhammad or not, I will condemn that person if he says this according to what happened in the story. That's fine with me. That's all I want. If you are prepared to condemn somebody who says this, that's great.
I condemn any rape, innit? God,
You said it. I'm very happy about that. I'm impressed.
you
I'm
think
really impressed that you will say such a thing. Thank you.
what? You're confused, man. You think Muslims actually allow rape? Is that what you're thinking?
No, I am saying that Muslims will not condemn rape if Muhammad says it's good.
Nah, Muhammad actually doesn't say it's good. That's where you're mistaken. Sorry. But I'm actually Muhammad. Yo.
The thing is, you said that if Muhammad would say that raping is okay, you will condemn Muhammad. And that is the most important thing. Then that's it.
Yeah, say that again. You actually are. Is it me? I think it's my internet cutting up.
Do you want me to repeat this?
My internet, I think it's cutting up.
Okay. I said what I want is for a Muslim to tell me that this Muslim, this person, will condemn Muhammad if Muhammad said that raping a woman is okay and you should enjoy your orgasm.
I condemn rape, obviously, but I think that's your influence where you're saying Muhammad actually allowed rape, and the country you didn't.
No. The thing is, you said you would condemn Muhammad if he did say this.
I wouldn't.
Sorry, you wouldn't?
You're confusing me now. Say it clearly again.
Okay. You said that you will condemn Muhammad if he says that his men should enjoy raping female captives.
I condemn, yeah.
So this is exactly what I'm saying. I very much respect a Muslim who will say that they will condemn Muhammad if he says that raping a female is okay and that they should enjoy it. That's all I'm saying. That's wonderful.
Okay, let me just give you some hadith here. Hadith 3718. I saw Abu Sa'ad and asked him about we went with Allah Apostle in the Gawza of Bani al-Musalliq and we captured some of the Arabs as captives, and the long separation from our wives was pressing us hard. He wanted to and we asked Allah the Apostle whether we could do this. He said, "It is better for you not to do so. No soul that Allah has destined to exist up to the day of the resurrection, but definitely will come into existence." And
which hadith are you reading? Sorry, just give me it and I'll bring it up on screen.
3718.
3718. What book number is that?
1 second. Hadith 3718. 1 second. Just give me 2 seconds, please.
3718. Okay, maybe I can find it myself. Yeah.
Just write Arabs as captives 3718 if you can. I think you might pop up.
3718. 3718. Okay, let's just see if this is the right one. No. You need to give me the book number there.
Copy and paste this.
I've got a hadith that's 3718, but it's book 10, and that doesn't say what you're talking about.
He's actually talking about the slave woman is regarded as adultery.
Yeah, give us the proper reference so we can bring it up on screen here. I need the book number and the hadith number.
Yo, I'm using my phone, that's why, man. I'm not on PC.
Yeah, your audio is not so good there. I don't know if you got headphones in, but there's a bit of static on it. We can still hear you, but there's a bit of static on the line.
1 second. It's because I'm using my phone and I'm not on a computer.
Can you get to your computer or are you out and about?
Yeah, I'm out on it.
Right.
Do you have some words so that I can just look it up in the collection?
I will find it. Just give me a few minutes.
Rob, do you remember some words? I don't remember the words.
It's something. I think he was talking about Muhammad saying it's better to wait, or it's better to do something there. But yes, we need a few of the words there. Can you just read it again there, Stacks?
1 second. Just a few more seconds.
Because we can search for it here.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that the audience can see it and we can all read it along with you.
Why is it not showing? So, yo, give me a few seconds. My internet is bad, man. It's actually, should I just read it for you again? Can you hear me?
Sorry, yes, I can hear you. Yeah, you're coming through.
I'll read it again. Find it, car.
Read it again, yeah.
We went with Allah the Apostle in the Goza of Beni al-Mustaliq, and we captured some of the Arabs as captives, and the long separation from our wives was pressing us hard, and we wanted to practice courteous interrupts. We asked Allah's Apostle whether it was permissible. He said, "It is better for you not to do so. Know so that Allah has destined to exist up to the day of resurrection, but will definitely come into existence."
Okay, it's book 46, Hadith 718.
Book 40. This is Sahih Muslim?
No, Bukhari.
Bukhari, sorry. Bukhari. Book, volume, which one?
46.
Book 46, yeah.
718.
I'm not finding it that way. Goodness, 718. Let me just see if I can find it another way here.
He's gone.
Yeah, I think he's got a bad connection. He'll be back again. 718. 718, did you say, Stops?
Yeah.
Can you share your screen? Because I'm battling to find it here.
Okay, let me just take a quick screenshot and I'll put it into here.
Okay. I think he's on his phone and hopefully he'll be back.
Please note, I did not say anything what I was doing.
So far.
Yeah.
Again, if you are listening here and you want to join us, feel free to do so, or let me know in the chat.
Oh, sorry.
Now I've got you presenting there, Stops, to everybody. We've got your icon up. There we go. And this is Sahih Bukhari, book 46, Hadith 718. I saw Abu Sa'id and asked him about coitus interruptus. Abu Sa'id said, we went with Allah's apostle in the area there, and we captured some of the Arabs as slaves, and the long separation from our wives was pressing us hard, and we wanted to practice coitus interruptus. We asked Allah's apostle whether it was permissible. He said, it is better for you not to do so. No soul which Allah has destined to exist up to the day of resurrection will definitely come into existence. So it seems like there's something missing here. This one, am I correct, Stops? I'm just reading this now.
No. There's confusion here.
Okay, go ahead.
Because the thing, what people see, it is better for you not to do so, refers to the pulling out.
And of course, a Muslim would ask, how do you know that?
No,
why
he would
you
say,
interpret that?
No, he says it's better for you not to do so. In other words, don't rape them.
So he's saying in this hadith, don't rape them.
This is what a Muslim will read. This is what a Muslim will be told. You see, it says here, it's better for you not to do so. So it says here, don't rape them. But in actual fact, the hadith is saying the exact opposite. It says, do rape them and then have fun doing so and enjoy it.
Can you, because obviously there's Muslims watching. He's not on here at the moment. And I'm sure his response will be, how do you get that from this hadith? So can you break that down for us?
It says here, number one, we captured some captives and the separation was pressing us. And we wanted to practice coitus interruptus. In other words, they wanted to rape them. And then what they normally did is we'll pull out just before orgasm so that they can sell them on the slave slave market without the women being pregnant. So what it says here in the hadith is, we wanted to practice coitus interruptus, raping them, pulling out, and we asked whether this is permissible. He says it is better not to do so. In other words, don't pull out, enjoy your orgasm, because any soul destined to exist up to the day of resurrection will definitely come into existence depending on what God wants. So Allah is watching, and he's seeing his okis there doing the naughty, and then he says, well, he had his orgasm, but I think he should get more money on the slave market, so she will not be pregnant. The other guy, he says, I don't like the looks of him, and he will get less money on the slave market, she will be pregnant. There you go. This is what this hadith is saying.
I see what you're saying, and now I can see what you're saying. I think the challenge with this, just from again, playing the devil's advocate and knowing how we interact with many of the Muslims here, not every Muslim is the same, of course, but knowing how we've interacted, I think you'd have to go through this extremely carefully, and I can see them just not wanting to see it that way and claiming that's just your interpretation and focusing on it is better not to do so, and not saying that's your interpretation. That's what I could see happening here.
You mean, and twisting it to mean it is better for you not to do so is the we wanted to.
Yes, to suggest that, in fact, not to do so refers to not having any sort of sexual intercourse with them.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it doesn't say anything. It only says we wanted to practice coitus interruptus, which means we wanted to pull out. It doesn't say anything else. It's only about the azal. It's only about the pulling out. That is better not to do.
Yes, I understand what you're saying. Yeah. So it's a case of ensuring that we focus on, which is part of this entire hadith, is not that it's better not to have sex, but it's better not to practice coitus interruptus, which is pulling out just before orgasm, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so
and there's a couple. There's like there's over a dozen of these.
Yeah, and so presumably then what Stax was bringing this up as a counter is, in fact, as you pointed out, not a counter, but in fact
confirmation
of the previous hadith. Yeah. Go ahead, Thunderous.
I just think really sometimes it's when you're dealing with a Muslim, and from the get-go his attitude was it's a weak hadith, or you have to check the train of transmitters. And I think he mentioned at one point that one of the chains of transmitters that commented about Aisha being 6 years old was having hallucinations because he was old. I mean, this is just, it's almost like on-the-spot freestyle lying. I've never heard such excuses. But the thing for me, I was getting a bit frustrated because when you've got a Muslim that says, I don't accept the hadith, it doesn't matter what you bring up, if it's from the hadith, he's just going to deny it, he's going to deny the authenticity, and then you've got the Muslim default, I've got nowhere else to go, so I'll use the word context argument. So, I just found that perhaps the conversation could have gone swiftly onto the Qur'an, and then there wouldn't have been any context or any, if you like, interpretation. Because I just found that no matter what, you guys were right, absolutely bang on. You guys were right, and but he was never going to admit that. He was always going to find the get out of this conversation because I'm a Muslim with my back against the wall and I don't know how to defend it.
Yeah, I mean we're used to that, Thunderous. I think it's for the viewing audience to make up their mind. I don't expect any Muslim here to accept the point, although he did, to his credit, he did. Eventually, when pressed a little bit by Stops, agree that if Muhammad did say this, he would condemn it.
I think he wasn't aware that he said this.
Oh, yeah, you don't think?
But he's got no choice but to say he's going to condemn it. He's not going to turn around and say, "I'm not going to condemn Muhammad for saying that rape is okay." No Muslim in their right mind would say that. But then, having said that, from the Muslim point of view, what they're doing is not rape anyway. It's been legalized by their God and sanctioned by their God, so it's no longer a crime. It's not a criminal act anymore. And
Thunderous, you're 100% correct, which is why I normally don't even go to hadith. Unfortunately, hadith, the Quran doesn't say anything about Muhammad, and he was on the point of saying Muhammad is the one who is giving me all my joy, and this is why I had to go to the hadith, which I normally don't do.
Yeah, it's just that he was saying things like. What was it? He commented that Islam gives like it's a step ahead, so to speak, in goodness in comparison to any other person's goodness.
Because Muhammad was such a great person, and this is why I latched onto that, because normally I don't do this. Normally I stay with the Quran, because you're 100% right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I found it frustrating as well that when he was talking about that kind of way of life, in comparison to, say, somebody who's an atheist who does good. And obviously, because when you look at the religion of Islam and you look at 1.5 billion human beings and the good that they do, where can anybody give me an example of anything good that's come from Islam in comparison? I ask, in comparison to, say, Judeo-Christian and atheism, whether as singularities or as a combination. And by this I mean Amnesty International, human courts of human rights, courts of human rights, various charities set up for ecology or for animals or for land or historical buildings, or even like for instance, helicopter crash site reader where there's an incident, so you have to have, say, an earthquake evacuation crew set up to go anywhere in the world to help people in distress in that location.
Yeah, I mean, I think they can bring things up, Thunderous. I just want to
name one. Okay, then if they can, I would like to hear them.
Yeah, and we can ask. We've got somebody in here by the name.
So the point being, when he says that it gives you that level of goodness ahead of any other, I see no evidence of goodness from Islam in comparison to Judeo-Christianity or even atheism.
Okay, well, let's. We've got somebody who's joined us. I think his name is Nathan. Nathan, do you want to join us and let us know if you're a Muslim and what you'd like to talk about?
Hello.
Hi. Good evening. Yes, we can hear you.
Good evening. I'm not a Muslim. I'm Christian.
Oh, okay. Well, then you're.
Why?
We're looking for Muslims to join us here, not so much Christians, because this show is focused on critiquing Islam, obviously not Christianity. So, is there a comment you want to have? But we're really looking for Muslims to join us.
Quick question about Muslims.
Sorry, say that again.
Can I ask?
You broke up there. What did you say?
So there's a question that I've always had for Muslims that I would like for them to answer.
Go ahead, ask it, and if we get a Muslim in, I will ask it on your behalf. Go ahead.
Okay. So in one of the pillars of Islam, which is prayer or the salat, I find out that it's not in the Quran, but it's found rather in the hadith. And the Quran came before the hadith. So does it mean that the Quran is not complete and that we need the hadith in addition to the Quran to make it complete?
Okay, good. I'll ask you a question. Thank you for joining us. I will ask you to leave the panel here because we have got a lot of people and I've got a couple of Muslims on. So we'll pose that question to them and see what they come back with. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I think we have a Muslim who's going to join us now. Let's just show him broadcast. Hi there. What is it? Kilondi?
Hello.
Good. Are you a Muslim, my good sir? You are a Muslim, yes? Okay, we're looking for Muslims to join us at the moment.
Allow a Muslim in or what?
Yeah, if you could at the moment. If you've got any questions, pop those into the chat because we want to bring in some Muslims here if there are any. Otherwise, we're probably going to bring the show to a close. We're looking at the moment to have a discussion based on what the Muslims said.
Right. Okay. No worries. I'll just leave and I'll just put a question in for you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Enjoy.
Thank you. Trolindi TM. Okay, he's also left us. Stops, can you answer that question that from Nathan that came in then? We don't have a Muslim here at the moment. Stops, are you still there? Hello, Stops.
I was just getting some water.
Oh, okay. My apologies.
Because I thought we were going to get a question or something, so I thought I was safe for 2 minutes.
Oh, did you hear what the question from Nathan?
Yeah, I heard Nathan.
Okay.
And this is a very common question, and we all know the answer. We don't need a Muslim for that. Absolutely, the Quran is not complete. There's a lot of things that are missing. There's a lot of things that have to be qualified, completed, have to be mentioned at all from other sources, which normally take scholars, and a lot of times is found in the hadiths, because there's a lot of things missing. So yes, the Quran is incomplete.
But specifically stops on his specific claim about the Quran and what it says in the hadiths. What was it about salat? I think it was.
The prayer, yes.
Yes. Yep. So,
okay, there's different things that you need to know here. There is a claim made that, in fact, you do have the 5 prayers mentioned in the Quran, which they are not. Now, I don't know why they think this. If you go and you look at this, because there's a collection, let me quickly bring this up. The dawn prayer is mentioned in 2458. The noon prayer is specified in 1778. The afternoon prayer is in 238. And the sunset prayer is mentioned 1114, and the night prayer as well. Now, if you look at this claim that all 5 prayers are actually in the Quran, you will see that, for example, 2458 says, before the prayer of dawn, when you put aside your garments at noon, and after the prayer night.
Stops you too fast. You're too fast. Let's bring it up for those people, because you obviously know this out of your head. So can you give me the chapter and verse so that I can share it on screen?
Okay. If you take, for example, 1778.
So chapter 17, verse 78. Just bring that up on screen.
So the claim is that this is the noon prayer, which is specified in 1778.
Okay, so this is the noon prayer. It's in 1778. So here we go, presenting to everybody. Go ahead. It's now on screen, Scopes. Go ahead, yeah.
Can anybody tell me where the noon prayer is?
Right, so let's just read Sahih International. Establish prayer at the decline of the sun from its meridian, in inverted commas, or in brackets, until the darkness of night. And also the Quran of dawn. Indeed, the recitation of prayer is ever witnessed. Or let's take Yusuf Ali. Establish, because I'm not a fan of Sahih International. They're starting to put words in there to fill in sort of gaps, which I'm not sure is
yeah, unfortunately, Rationalizer has taken out the corpus, which is the best.
Okay. Well, let's go with Yusuf Ali here. Establish regular prayers. I mean, we can go to corpus if you prefer, Stops. I don't mind. Establish regular prayers at the sun's decline until the darkness of the night. So presumably they are saying that at the sun's decline. So they are interpreting this to mean once it starts declining from the midpoint of the day. Presumably, is that what they're claiming? As I just read, it's the first time I'm reading this particular one in this way.
I don't know. I don't understand this. For me, this is total gibberish.
Okay, at the sun's decline until the darkness of night. So establish regular prayer. So if I'm just reading this off here, this is quite my interpretation. But I think that it goes back to the same thing, isn't it? This could have been crystal clear that at the noon sun of wherever you are on this planet, you establish the noon prayer. That there would have left zero doubt. But let's read it as it says it here. At the sun's decline until the darkness of night, and the morning prayer and the reading. For the prayer and the reading in the morning carry their testament. Okay, so that part we don't really need that. But here, this is the important bit, presumably. At the sun's decline till the darkness of night. And what does Pickthall say on this? Establish worship at the going down of the sun until the dark of night. That's certainly not clear, but presumably they are going to claim that going down means 1 minute after midday. Presumably, that's what they're going to say. But again, this is not clear in any way. Or let me put it this way: even if we were charitable, the only thing we could say, it could be a lot more clear than this. Going down of the sun until the dark of night. At the sun's decline until the darkness of night.
Okay, so the point is that the Quran does not clearly establish the 5 prayers, because you can go for the next one, which is 2:38. Okay, which is supposed to be the afternoon prayer, and
2:38. Right. Okay. Just bring it up there. I mean, it's definitely not clear. It's definitely not clear. Again, right. So here we go. Be guardians of your prayers and of the midmost prayer, and stand up with devotion to Allah. Or guard strictly of your habit of prayers, especially the middle prayer, and stand before Allah in a devout frame of mind. So presumably the middle prayer refers to the third prayer out of the 5. Am I?
Yeah, I don't know. This is supposed to be the afternoon prayer. Where do you get the afternoon prayer here?
Yeah. Okay. No, this is definitely unclear. If you're praying 5 times, and the middle prayer is the third prayer, how do you establish that that's the afternoon? Is there somewhere else, Stops, in the Quran that talks about more or less when the prayer should happen? That's better than these verses, or is this it? You have to appeal to the hadith in order to get more specific.
No, go to, okay, the most specific one is 24:58.
24:58. So here we go, 24:58. O ye who believe, let your slaves and those of you who have not come to puberty ask leave of you at 3 times before they come into your presence, before the prayer of dawn, and when ye lay aside your raiment for the heat of noon, and after the prayer of night, 3 times of privacy for you. It is no sin for them or for you at other times, when some of you go around attendant upon others. And thus Allah maketh clear the revelations to you. Maketh clear. Goodness. Okay.
Okay, but the point is, here you have 2 prayers, the prayer of dawn and the prayer of night. So those are the only times when you have like somewhat clear indications that there should be 2 prayers.
But again, in the morning, presumably is any time after the sun rises until 1 minute before midday.
Exactly. Correct? You don't know. You don't know. But this is the most clear thing that you get.
Yeah. So is there for those people who do appeal to the hadiths, is there clarity on this in the hadith somewhere?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And that will give you then obviously a lot more clearer. Does it clear? Have we got a hadith that we can go to just so we can see what clear means?
Well, go here and check, because this is the beauty of Qur'an X. You just go to you go yeah.
Oh, search.
No. No, go back to the sentence.
Let me go back there. What happened there? I've lost it now. It doesn't seem to keep it. Go back. No. What was 17, the sentence?
Okay, go to, which one were you? 24:58.
Yep, sorry. It's not picking it up. So 24:58. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Where are the hadith? Go up a little bit.
Yes, there's hadith. You might have changed there's translations.
No, it used to say roots, tafsirs.
Yep.
I need to talk to him. Jesus. It's called tafsir, not tafirs.
Yeah,
because it's being revamped. There's a whole lot of thing happening, and okay, I need to tell. And there on the hadiths are missing.
So there's hadiths here. Okay. Right.
It's missing because if you go to hadith on top, it just gives you a selection of hadiths, but not the one relevant to this one, which is normally the case. What you need to do here is now click on tafsir or tafirs. I'll write to him quickly.
Yes.
Okay, and there, then the funny thing, I wish Allah forbids our children, and along those, so before the prayer, it just repeats, before the prayer of dawn, he doesn't explain anything. So the tafsir does not. You have to go to the hadith. And we don't have the hadiths.
Okay. Okay, fair enough.
And it takes, no, it's going to take me too long to find this now.
Yeah.
But there are hadiths which make it clear. Yes. So you need the hadith. So the answer, what was it, Anthony? Definitely it's incomplete.
Okay, good. Well, I think we aren't going to get anybody else in. We have posted the link multiple times. Again, the request goes out. If you're a Muslim and you want to join us, then now's your opportunity. But I think we're getting to the stage where we'll bring this to a close. Thunderous, are you available next week at all?
Yes, I am.
Could you do a presentation? I will be away working, so if you could accompany or co-host or be with Stops tomorrow, next week. And I think there was something you wanted to present. I can't remember off the top of my head what it was.
94 Adam. Historical reality or just another tall story?
I like that. I like that. All right. So if you're good with doing that, we can do that next week with stops.
You need the title again? I need to write this down.
It was brilliant. 90-foot Adam. What was it?
Historical reality, or just another tall story? Can you get Islam in there as well somewhere? Like, you know, historical reality, or another Islamic tall story.
Yeah, we can try and put that in. Have you got that, Stops? He's typing it away in the background there. Just so I can get you ready, Stops, if you've got the hadith of the day for the end. Brilliant. Okay, Thunderous, thank you so much for that. At least you can join Stops. I will be working late. I won't be on next Friday.
No, it'll be my pleasure. And I thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, no, it'll be a pleasure to have you on again. So with that said, I want to thank all the viewers. There's over 100 viewers who are still on here with us now. And I want to thank again Apostate Prophet for joining us as our special guest. Thank you to Thunderous, to TJ, and obviously to my great co-host, who will finish this off with a hadith of the day. And thank you again to everybody who's viewed, who's given your comments in the show. We are here every Friday, 8 p.m. UK time. Please subscribe and like, share it with your friends. And if you have any Muslims, or if you have anybody that wants to engage on this, we critique Islam. So if you are a Christian, if you're a Hindu, if you're an atheist, and you have some legitimate critique of Islam, we welcome you to come in here. We don't critique other religions. There are other shows that do that. There's other shows that critique atheism. We critique specifically Islam. And with that said, I'm going to pass over to Stops for the hadith of the day to finish us off.
I swear I did not plan this, okay? I just have a listen. I just take the next one. I don't go into planning this. But this is about women. So Muhammad claimed all women are deficient in intelligence. Narrated Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. The Prophet said, "Isn't the witness of a woman equal to half of that of a man?" The women said, "Yes." He said, "This is because of the deficiency of a woman's mind."
And
this is in Sahih Bukhari 348, 826, Sahih Bukhari 224, 541, and Sahih Bukhari 16301.
Yeah, we've got to post that for people to look at. But I would be fascinated to hear what a Muslim, and I'm sure you could give us some information on this, but I'd be fascinated to hear what Muslims would say to that hadith, if in fact they accept it as hadith, and, you know, the context, there isn't a specific context around that. As Thunderous said, the usual apologetics, do they accept that? And if so, what is their response to that? How do they explain that? What is their view? But maybe that's for another show.
Thunderous, are you scratching the microphone?
No, not at all. Sorry, I got made. Sorry, what I'm doing is I got made redundant 2 weeks ago, and I'm just checking to see if the company I was working for was legitimately got liquidated. Sorry.
Oh, okay, no, it just sounded like something was. That's why I muted you a bit earlier.
Yeah,
all right, brilliant. Thank you so much again to everybody, to Apostate Prophet, to all our viewers. We will be back next Friday with Stop Spamming and Thunderous, and I'll be back the week after that. Thank you all for everything, and we bid you good night.
Good night. Thank you, everybody.